Our story begins with a man frantically bursting into a temple. He shouts for everyone to escape warning of a terrifying man heading their way. The leader inside calmly asks who he's talking about. The messenger names him the Butcher, the vampire killer. Apparently he's leading an undead army to brutally wipe the Dark Order off the map. The leader just smiles, asking what there is to fear. After all, they have the finest holy knights for protection. But the messenger is completely panicked. He explains that those very knights are now zombies marching right toward the temple. We cut to our main character, a sinister grin on his face, as he magically commands his undead horde. The two men in the temple watch as ominous shadows draw near, and it quickly dawns on them that they're in serious trouble. The zombies crash inside and both men are instantly on their knees, begging for mercy. Our protagonist casually strolls in as the leader has a total meltdown, wondering how their own zombies are now trying to kill them. The protagonist calmly places his foot on the man's hand. The leader begins whining that God is on their side and will grant them salvation. Our hero puts a gun to his head, replying, "Yes, salvation has arrived. From me." The man cries, sensing some kind of divine energy. The protagonist coldly states God's blessing will lead them directly to hell. Now let's rewind a bit. Rumors have been flying about the seventh prince's exile, calling it a massive dishonor to the Holy Empire. The prince was such a mess that people wondered how royalty could produce such a disaster. And believe me, the rumors were quite scandalous. The story is that he harassed the archbishop's daughter and was caught in the act. Instead of facing punishment, he threw a tantrum and destroyed the archbishop's hall. The Holy Emperor had finally seen enough. He sent him away to the land of dead spirits to reflect on his behavior. But rather than doing any self-reflection, our prince tried to end his life over a girl. And this is where the story gets strange. Following the attempt, he was like a completely different person. He began a humble life in a monastery and suddenly became incredibly popular. Naturally, this made people highly suspicious. Some thought a demon had possessed him. Others whispered he'd made a pact with the devil. There were even stories of him consorting with the dead near the monastery. We see our main character now clearly in the prince's body, standing before some zombies when a system window appears. He just stares at it. He wonders aloud why this thing keeps showing up. He turns to his undead, guessing the villagers saw them and started the rumors. If this keeps up, he's worried he will be accused of being a heretic, which is pretty much a death sentence in this world. He then reflects on his past life as a regular guy from Korea. One day, he just woke up in the body of the emperor's disaster-prone grandson, Allan, right after the original prince's attempt. Now he has this strange system window following him around. Plus, he's gained necromancer abilities, allowing him to control the dead. He uses his powers to manage the graveyard, but people assume it's dark magic. He was clueless at first, but now he's starting to enjoy this strange new life. Still, maybe it's time to hang up his zombie wrangling hat for good. His undead crew has been incredibly diligent. They're a perfect team digging graves, setting headstones a seamless operation. Beaming, Allan praises them, calling it a truly magnificent day. The zombies puff up their chests, thrilled by the compliment. But when he suggests it's time to part ways, their moods instantly sour. They shoot him death stares as Allan quickly tries to defuse the situation. Grabbing a shovel, he nervously observes they seem a little agitated. His past life was chaos, he explains, and he wants a quieter existence this time. Seeing their faces, he relents, promising to reconsider because of their bond. Instantly, all three zombies give him an enthusiastic thumbs up. These guys are just too cute, Allan thinks, saying, "All right, back to it." Elsewhere in the woods, two men are trudging through the trees. "Did you hear that?" one of them asks nervously. The other, hauling a cart of bodies, tells him to keep quiet or join them. They have to find the prince fast. He's the last hope for their cursed village. Spotting the cart, Allan asks the pair if these are all the bodies they have. The men confirm that this is indeed the last of them. Everyone else from the village has either fled or already met their end. Then one villager awkwardly asks if Allan would please consider visiting their town. Allan just stares at them. "And why on earth would I do that?" They explain their village is nearly wiped out and they'd feel much safer with him. They believe their visits to Allan are the only reason they're still alive. Visits they made often, while hauling bodies. Allan knows for a fact the original prince had no such protective abilities, and their constant begging and clinging is starting to get on his nerves. They grab onto him, panicked, asking what they'll do if they fall ill. They're convinced he's their personal good luck charm. Allan's expression hardens. This is one giant misunderstanding, but he never gets the chance to explain. They're already pulling him toward the village. Arriving, Allan leads the way, noting how unsettling the town feels. One man warns him to watch his step as the drainage system has failed. Allan whips around, demanding they stop clinging to him like a safety blanket. A figure darts by in the shadows, and Allan mutters that in their shoes he'd be more worried about his own home than following him. He freezes at a sound, asking, "What was that noise?" The man dismisses it nervously, suggesting it's probably a rat. Declaring he'll investigate, Allan ventures into a dark alley. The villagers instantly panic, shouting that he shouldn't go in there alone, but he presses on, sensing that something is seriously wrong here. A thick, murderous aura hangs in the air, and he knows it isn't his imagination. A sudden noise makes him spin around, spotting a rat peeking out from the wall. Before he can react, he locks eyes with the rat, which has glowing red pupils. The creature lets out a horrifying screech, and suddenly a whole swarm pours from the hole, a nightmarish, furry waterfall. They rush straight for Allan as he shouts, "What in the world is this?" He realizes these are zombie rats, the likely cause of the village's demise. Flailing his arms, he yells that the whole settlement fell to these tiny menaces. In a complete panic, he slams his shovel into the earth, releasing a wave of magical energy. The rats freeze. Allan is genuinely amazed that it worked. But then the living rats gather around their fallen friends, chittering with rage. They charge him all at once as Allan pleads that he didn't mean to do it. "It was an accident, please don't hurt me." The swarm overtakes him and he falls, dropping his shovel into a puddle. The shovel begins to pulse with magical energy while Allan yells at the freaks to get off him. The puddle's water flows towards him as a system window appears. Skill Swamp of Death activated. He's left sitting there thinking to himself, what just happened? The two guys run over asking where all the rats came from, but then they see something incredible. The murky puddle had transformed into holy water. How was that possible? Did he purify the rats? They must have been spreading the disease. Allan grabs his shovel, realizing he can use skills besides raising the dead. His necromancer abilities were sanctified by the holy power he inherited from the Emperor. So in short, he's a holy necromancer, which explains why his undead employees are so courteous. It seems even the undead appreciate good management and divine benefits. Just then a girl appears and our hero turns to his two clueless friends. He asks if they didn't mention being the only ones left in the village. The pair just grins. "Oh, don't worry, she's just our next door neighbor." They wave her over, all smiles, inviting her to come closer. But Charlotte is hiding a knife behind her back. In a flash, she takes down the two friends and lunges for our hero. He barely deflects the blow with his shovel, thinking, is she a zombie too? He pushes her back, seeing she's still clutching the knife, which means her transformation isn't complete. Charlotte acts like a zombie, but then asks for her parents before charging again. This time she overpowers him, sending him to the ground. But then his divine power flares to life again, and the mere contact from his body starts to burn Charlotte's skin. That's when a plan forms and he shoves her into the holy water. She screams in pain, but he tells her to endure it, saying it's the only way to be cured. He holds her in the water as she cries out until finally she goes quiet. Sometime later, a group of villagers arrives at the scene. An older man explains they heard Allan cleared out the rats and saved a girl named Charlotte. He came to ask for Allan's help as well. Allan sits there flipping through a book, looking totally over it all. He snaps the book shut and tells the villagers that the girl is dead. The villagers gasp in disbelief, asking if Charlotte is really gone. Allan just calmly asks how he's supposed to save anyone. He might have the Holy Emperor's blood, but he possesses zero actual power. Despair hits the villagers as they ask what they should do now. They journeyed so far in the hopes that he could help. Allan scoffs, "Who even told you I was some kind of savior?" Just then, a man runs in yelling that Charlotte is awake, all thanks to Allan. The villagers immediately give him the side eye. "You just lied to us." Allan looks away, annoyed. "I don't care." Then he stands up. Fine. He has a little divine power and might help, but there is a condition. A system window appears over an old man, Parlock, age 75, skilled in dialogue, gardening, and trickery. Oh, and his current state is full of doubt. Allan reads this with interest. He can see every detail about people. The old man wants his help, but distrusts his terrible reputation. So our main character shamelessly presents his conditions. This is not charity. He demands money, food, and for them to rebuild the cathedral for free. What a classic scheme, using a relic, demanding money, and exploiting the desperate. This is the kind of pro-level move someone would pull. The villagers are stunned. "We have to rebuild the entire thing. Your lives depend on it," Allan says. But before they can object, Parlock quickly agrees. But nope, our boy wasn't finished just yet. He adds another condition, making everyone's jaw drop. There's more. This shameless man orders them to keep everything secret from the holy knights. The villagers feel like they're being scammed, but what other choice do they have? Once they leave, Allan grins, knowing those 30 corpses have become zombies. But zombies happen to adore him, so he can handle this situation easily. He looks for gear, grabbing a pitchfork and shovel, then asks if they thought he'd fight alone. They can handle the hard labor while he simply reads some prayers. Staring at him, the villagers can only call him a demon. Suddenly, people run past screaming that the zombies are coming. And there they are, a massive zombie horde heading for the village. Allan sees them. You call this 30. He glares at Parlock, who admits he lied about the number. But with no time to lecture an old man, Allan focuses on the battle. He starts smashing zombie skulls left and right as his skill activates. His shovel creates holy water, and the system announces the Death Swamp skill. Using skills is no big deal, he thinks, since he was a necromancer before. In his past life, he was a beta tester for a popular game. He picked the necromancer class, died from an electric shock, and awoke in this body. Lucky for him, his game skills came along for the ride. This new body's divine power is hard to control. Using a skill makes energy leak everywhere. While he struggles with this, a villager starts crying that he can't do it anymore. His own zombified wife approaches him. How can I bring myself to kill her? Just as she reaches for his face, Allan rushes in and kicks her to the ground. The grieving husband calls out for his wife, but Allan snaps, telling him to face reality. The man fires back, screaming, what does he know about loss? Allan points his shovel at the wife, telling him her soul is gone. He can run if he wants her to suffer. Otherwise, he needs to stop crying and fight. Suddenly, a zombie lunges at Allan from behind, catching him by surprise. He glances up to see someone leap down, cracking the pavement with a powerful landing. She turns, asking if he's okay. It's Charlotte. She'd woken up remembering autumn and winter were infection seasons. She had thought the danger was over for the year. She had trusted her mother's words completely. Then she'd run inside scared of red-eyed rats, only to find the house covered in blood. She recalled her zombified father biting her mother. Her trembling mother cried for Charlotte to run away. She remembered her shock calling for her mom while slowly backing away. Then her mother turned, staring with rage-filled eyes. After that, her memory was just a complete blank. Her last memory was of rats and her parents chasing her. She defended herself with anything she could find. Next, she found herself by a window covered in blood. Her eyes began glowing red as the villagers acted strangely. Even the rats ignored her. She realized she was becoming one of them. It didn't matter. No one was coming to save her. She cried, wishing for just one person to come save her. That's when Allan appeared and saved her. Now back to the present. Charlotte jolts awake in a room, gasping from the nightmare. Confused about her memories, a girl approaches, saying the prince sent her. She's warned to be quiet because of the zombies outside. Charlotte peeks outside and hears Allan telling someone to stop crying and fight. Then a warning, the prince is attacked from behind. Worried, she flings the window open, ready to jump. The other girl panics, asking what she's doing. Charlotte leaps, smashing the ground, determined to save them. Later, Allan stares in disbelief, muttering, this can't be real. He gawks at a pile of zombies, wondering how she beat them alone. Seeing the villagers praise Charlotte, he thinks he deserves some thanks too. He figures the purification must have affected her somehow. He has no idea what kind of power she even possesses. Allan approaches the villagers, saying they must tend to their fallen relatives. He knows it's hard, but their suffering's over now. Through their tears, the people agree. And so Allan begins the ritual. As he works, he thinks to himself that the process is quite simple. Just bury the dead and wish them peace so their spirits won't wander. This way they can finally find their rest. This is exactly why he was banished. He looks to the sky, thinking of the spirit lands. Zombie outbreaks were probably about to pop up everywhere, and someone had to handle all the cleanup afterward. Allan asked the elder if the village was calm or if he'd noticed anything strange. Parlock said no, but the infection had started about a month ago. To Allan, that suggested this whole thing was deliberate. He almost brought up a necromancer, but the villagers totally panicked, asking if he meant those monsters who spread the plague. Meanwhile, the very sorcerers they cursed were overhearing every word. Our hero just covered his ears, wanting no part of it. Walking home, he figured the puppet master had to be close by. But finding them was the tricky part. He waved them off, saying he needed sleep as the villagers offered their thanks. Back in his room, Allan recalled his past life as a simple worker. He crashed on the bed, exhausted from the funeral and instantly dozing off. The next morning, some seriously loud shouting woke Allan right up. He opened the window, asking what all the noise was about. A villager yelled the shocking news zombies had kidnapped someone. He turned, asking the men if he had heard that correctly. One man nodded, while another swore they had seen it themselves. The zombies had attacked while everyone was tired from a sleepless night. They saw a zombie running off with a person screaming for help. The victim they were yelling about was Morianne. Our hero had to ask who exactly she was. They explained she was the village's young herb collector who patched up the injured. Allan wasn't really listening and just asked if he'd known her. The question made them shift awkwardly, one admitting she was beautiful and had rejected the prince. He sighed internally. Are they seriously bringing this up again? The guy added that the prince nearly hanged himself from the insult. Allan cut him off sharply, saying he remembered. so they really needed to just drop the subject. The man insisted they should form a search party to find her. Allan thought, are they just worried because she's pretty? But whatever. Still, he had to investigate since a kidnapping zombie was a new one. He needed answers and calmly asked if they could be tracked. The man suggested that Gantz the hunter might be able to help. Our hero agreed to get moving and to tell the hunter to get ready when he spotted Charlotte nearby. She was just staring at him and he wondered if she had a problem. Shrugging it off, he focused on getting to the cave. He yelled back at the others that they needed to hurry, because any more delays and she'd become zombie food. He figured tracking them would be easy, since the undead just dragged their feet. They finally reached the front of the cave. Our hero complimented the hunter as the others whined about the cold. Standing there, he could feel a foul demonic energy flowing from the entrance. He guessed the place was crawling with zombies, or maybe it was the source of the plague. Sure, some places naturally collect demonic energy, but the way these zombies move, someone's clearly controlling them. He turns and asks nonchalantly if they should just torch the entire cave. The man panics, shouting that Moran is still somewhere inside. Allan coolly points out how incredibly dark it is in there. In a place like this, undead monsters get a major power-up. If they all rush in for one person, it's a total party wipe. So the guy asks desperately, then how do we save her? Allan's answer is simple: they need to regroup and prepare. Naturally, this means Moran's chances of survival drop drastically. A sudden roar echoes, and he freezes, wondering what on earth that was. He's met with the terrifying sight of a giant bear right in his face. The beast sinks its teeth into his shoulder, then flings him right off the cliff. Mid-fall, our hero realizes something horrifying: this bear is also undead. He activates a skill with his shovel, splashing the beast with holy water. It lets out an agonizing scream. He immediately unleashes another skill, a devastating curse. As he heals, he curses himself for using up his divine power, leaving almost none for his own wounds. But the bear isn't having it. It charges forward relentlessly, its heavy footsteps echoing all around. He inspects the monster as a system window displays its info. Yep, its stats are enhanced by necromancy. Our hero puts it together. No wonder the holy water barely did anything. But then another realization hits him. If a necromancer is pulling the strings, this just got way worse. How in the world can he fight a bear with just his fists? The bear charges jaws wide open for the kill, but our guy dodges just in time. It follows up with a heavy paw swipe, but that misses too. From out of nowhere, Charlotte dives down, stabbing a blade deep into its eye. The monster roars in agony. Allan's first thought, did she really follow me? But there's no time for that. He yells her name, ordering her to hold the bear in place. But the beast slams her to the ground and looms over her, ready to bite. But she manages to thrust her knife upward, burying it deep inside the creature's skull. Our hero seizes the chance, rushing in to send the beast flying. He extends a hand, thanking her for buying him enough time for his skill cooldowns. She takes it, saying she owes him thanks, then notices his hand is a zombie's. Her imagination immediately starts running completely wild. That's when the zombies start charging them all at once. Allan just smirks, saying this is exactly what he expected. Nothing beats a numbers game. At his command, all his summoned zombies pile onto the bear, making it scream in pain. But the monster suddenly swings its massive paw. It smashes several zombies right into the rock wall. Then more zombie arms erupt from the earth. Allan realizes this bear has claimed many victims. But that's perfect for him. It just means more corpses he can raise to fight on his side. While the beast was much tougher than his summons, it couldn't handle the sheer numbers. Against all odds, the bear wiped out his entire zombie horde. It stomps right up to our hero, who doesn't even flinch. With a swift strike to the head from Charlotte, the monster began to topple. Without missing a beat, she immediately started harvesting its materials. She glanced over to find our hero barely on his feet. Rushing to his side, she helped him up, asking if he was all right. He insisted he was fine, just low on divine power. He couldn't help but wonder why she'd even bothered to follow him here. Facing her, he admitted she'd seen his true power, but he just wanted a peaceful life. So he pleaded, could she please keep this between them? From Charlotte's perspective, he looked incredibly cool and composed. But inside, our boy was panicking, hoping she'd just leave him be from now on. She looked him in the eye and said he'd saved her, so she would honor his request. Just as Allan was about to reply, the rest of the crew appeared, shouting their names. One of them, looking concerned, asked why they'd jumped and if our hero was hurt. They'd brought climbing gear and started making their way down into the cavern. Mentally, our hero was just sighing at this whole mess. He knew these guys would only slow him down and really wished they weren't here. The first person down was in shock, asking who on earth took care of the zombie and bear. Then his eyes landed on our hero, asking if he was responsible for this. Our boy quickly invented a story about a necromancer trying to claim the cave as a hideout. The others didn't bother asking for any more details. The word necromancer was more than enough to spook them. One of them, immediately suggested they get out of there as fast as possible. He figured Moraine was already gone, used as bait to lure them into a trap, as he thought that the guy turned and asked him for their next move. Our hero said they had to go deeper, much to the guy's disbelief. Allan just gave a relaxed smile, saying he wanted to test this necromancer's skills. With that, the group cautiously ventured deeper into the cave. After walking for a while, they found Moraine in a large chamber. The moment they spotted her, the others ran over shouting her name and promising they'd save her. Allan watched her with suspicion, thinking her part in this was already done. So why was she still unharmed? A very bad feeling washed over him. Our hero strode forward and, without warning, smacked her right in the face with his shovel. Everyone froze on the spot, completely baffled by what he was doing. Our hero just casually mentioned he meant to use the flat side of it. The others rushed to Moraine, anxiously asking if she was all right. One of them whirled on our hero, demanding to know what was going on. Allan said he saw the truth. A system window had popped up, displaying all of Moraine's hidden information. Suddenly it all made sense. She wasn't the bait. She was the mastermind behind it all. Moraine gave him a worried look, calling him Prince and saying he must be mistaken. Allan cut her off, warning the others not to fall for her act because she was the necromancer. Naturally, his clueless companions refused to believe him, but he continued, insisting she was not the person they thought she was. Everything about her was a carefully crafted lie, from her looks right down to her age. But she wasn't one to give up her charade that easily. She put on a tearful act, claiming a necromancer had captured and tormented her. In response, our hero simply pulled out a bottle of holy water and offered it to her. He offered her the drink, saying it was for the innocent. It's a powerful healing potion, unless all her organs melt. She told him there was no need for something so valuable. But he just approached with that goofy grin, telling her to drink up. When he held the bottle to her face with that unnerving smile, she began to panic. Maureen stared, wondering how on earth he knew. Her disguise was flawless, fooling everyone in the village. So how did he see right through her? What kind of power did he have to take down that monstrous bear? Allan asked if she was drinking or not, then shoved it into her unmoving hands. Suddenly, Morgana's entire face began to contort. A dark aura erupted as she revealed her plan to kill him during the death wave. She lunged forward with blinding speed, shattering the bottle he held. Her illusion vanished as she summoned the dead, sneering that he'd sped up his demise. She claimed she was trying to be merciful, but so much for that. With a manic grin, she shrieked that his end was here. A skeleton burst from the ground, only to get bonked by his shovel. He seemed genuinely offended that the creature dared to growl at him. Morgana never saw Charlotte approach from behind, asking what was happening. With one hand, Charlotte slammed her down, a knife gleaming in the other. Allan praised the skeleton while Morgana demanded to know who he was and what he did. She asked if his incredible power came from that shovel. He casually strolled over, laughing about quality shovels, but she wasn't convinced. She insisted it was no ordinary garden tool. A sacred relic, perhaps. He told her that was the least of her worries. She really needed to think about her own situation. A little later, her hands were bound as she confessed everything. The news crushed his friends, but he had already pieced it together. He simply told her to share something new. So she offered up the name of the person who'd ordered his death. He acted surprised, asking, "So this was an assassination?" Maureen confessed her orders were to stage his suicide, which genuinely shocked him. He stood there, realizing the original prince hadn't killed himself. He was murdered. Did that mean the prince wasn't the pathetic figure everyone thought he was? Maureen was completely baffled by his calm reaction to all this. She revealed the Dark Church had ordered her to kill the Emperor's seventh grandson. She'd also realized he was a necromancer, a secret the church would never forgive. He stepped closer and asked, "So you saw it all, did you?" He then called for Charlotte, saying they'd have to silence her for good. Instantly, Charlotte's sharp blade was at her throat. Morgana completely panicked, screaming for them to stop. She swore to keep his secret and betray the Dark Church. With a wide grin, Allan patted her cheek, saying easily, "Given info isn't very valuable." Her fate, he declared, would be decided by the villagers. The man glared with pure hatred as our hero pointed out all the families she'd destroyed. She cried for help as they unleashed their fury. Allan coolly inquired what their plans were for her. One man said she'd suffer just as much as her victims. They dragged her away, planning to torture her, then leave her in the woods. Animals would feast on her body, and what remained would rise again. Seemed like a fitting end for a necromancer who toyed with the dead right. Our boy couldn't help but agree. He mused that these villagers were surprisingly intense, then placed some books on the table. He hadn't found everything, but he did manage to loot a couple of useful texts. He immediately cracked one open. He hoped to find a spirit communication skill, but this volume was a bust. Allan recalled Moraine mentioning this death wave event and the assassination plot. Could his brothers be behind it? Being a prince made him a target for the throne. Closing the book, our boy muttered about what a mess these power struggles were. Was this really what the royal life was all about? What if the next time the assassin actually succeeds? He had to level his skills and fast. Charlotte worried if he could really be killed. Everyone kept remarking how much the prince had changed. He wasn't the biggest guy, but he was always first to charge into a fight. He had single-handedly saved so many people and honored the fallen. She remembered villagers telling her that he'd personally seen to her parents' funeral rites. Charlotte clenched her fist, grateful that he had saved both her and her family. She wanted to thank him, but simple words just weren't enough. Her eyes drifted to the books he'd brought back. She knew being near him was dangerous, but he needed a protector. She picked up a book, the Imperial Swordsmanship Manual, making her choice. She had to get stronger to protect her amazing prince. Meanwhile, Allan was deep into his reading. He was getting a crash course on the biology of the undead. It seems when zombies decay completely, they just become skeletons. However, if they manage to prevent their bodies from rotting, they level up to ghouls. From ghoul, it's Dullahan, then finally vampire. Basically, the longer they exist, the smarter and more powerful they get. The text explained that lingering in dark mana triggers this evolution. That's why they constantly hunt for places with strong mana. And apparently all zombies are summoned from a place called the Land of Dead Spirits. When autumn ends and winter arrives, their instinct to return to the Land of Dead Spirits goes into overdrive. This period is called the Death Wave, and December 25th is the coldest day of all. While normal people are unwrapping presents, the entire undead horde marches to the Land of Dead Spirits to try and live again. Allan closed the book, his expression turning serious. He realized there was only about a month left until the death wave hit. Just then, Charlotte approached, addressing him as her prince, and offering to shelve the book. He passed it to her, watching her leave. He thought to himself that he hadn't even asked her to do any of this, yet this girl came to the church faithfully every single day. And she isn't just sorting books, she's cleaning, tending the graveyard, and even cooking. He's basically got a full-time assistant that he never even asked for. He just closes his eyes, assuming she'll probably take off sooner or later. Besides, he heard Grill adopted her, so she actually has a proper home now, instead of sticking around a banished prince inside a spooky old church. Just then, the church doors fly open and several knights march inside. Allan is completely stunned, demanding to know what they're doing there. A system window pops up over one of them with all his info. The guy's name is Harvin Dine. He takes his helmet off, explaining they heard talk about the prince capturing the witch. But Allan isn't even focused on that. He's just annoyed the guy didn't greet him properly. Considering Allan is still technically a member of the royal family, then it dawns on him. If the news has already reached them, it means someone's been spying on him. Annoyed, he confirms that yes, he caught her. Then he asks the other knights if they've got a problem with it. The knight says he's simply here to confirm a few things. It seems the information they received was spot on. The useless exiled prince actually did something right for once and helped villagers fight off some monsters. But Harvin is especially curious about the report mentioning them using farm tools as weapons. He asks Allan if that part is really true, because a fellow named Grill claimed he slew 30 zombies and trapped a witch with holy water. Allan just stands there thinking it's barely been 5 minutes since he was praising the guy, and now he's spilling all the details. Harvin smiles, admitting he honestly thought the story was exaggerated. But after seeing the battle damage, he knew it was the real deal. Allan is just face-palming on the inside. If this man is supposed to be a holy knight, he really shouldn't be so gullible, believing everything people tell him. Harvin then asks if Allan was aware that Morgana belonged to the Dark Church. Our main character says yeah, she told him herself. Harvin agrees, adding, it's a wicked group that has already wiped out 5 villages. Allan is in shock, feeling like an absolute idiot for not knowing any of this. Harvin asks if she's really gone for good. Allan's response is, didn't you... She's dead. The body's gone. Then Harvin asks if Allan was the one who did it. At this point, our hero knows he has to play this smart. He calmly asks what sort of power someone would need to manage that. In his mind, though, he's thinking, of course I did it, but revealing my power would be foolish. The villagers helped him, so it's safer to just stick with Grill's crazy story. He puts on a big act pretending to be utterly shocked and scared, saying he almost wet his pants during the battle. The knights stare at him with total disgust, and Harvin thinks that the very mental image makes him want to be sick. The guy awkwardly clears his throat and moves on, asking about the witch's grimoires. They were supposed to seize any dark magic items, but her entire bookshelf was bare. Allan suggests that maybe the villagers burned them all due to their sinister energy. He even tells Harvin to go and ask them about it if he'd like. Harvin takes out a small pouch saying Morgana had an 80-coin bounty on her. With a huge grin, Allan reaches for it, claiming it was just his duty as a prince model. Harmon reminds him the gold must be shared with the villagers. But in his head, Allan is throwing a party. He's thanking the witch for all the incredible gifts. First book's now gold. This witch is a true treasure. But just as our hero was enjoying his newfound riches, the knights told him to pack his bags. Allan's good mood vanished. Shocked, he turns to them, asking if he's being exiled yet again. He's thinking, seriously, getting banished once wasn't enough. Harmon sighs, explaining a death wave is near and they're here for his protection. Our hero is confused for a moment, asking if this is an evacuation. Is he going back to the palace or maybe the warm south away from zombies? You know somewhere that actually makes sense? Harmon shakes his head. Nope, his destination is the Lonia estate. Now Allan is totally lost. That place is just a half-day's ride well within zombie territory. So what is the point of all this? The knight explains a special fortress at the estate was built to stop the wave. They've gathered both soldiers and prisoners to face the zombies, which basically means they're expecting a huge slaughter and took him there to handle funeral rites for all the people who are about to die. Arriving at the stronghold, they're greeted by Janet Layan, the 43-year-old Viscount of Lonia. A system window pops up calling him sociable and merciful. The man greets Allan with a warm smile and asks how he's feeling. Allan bluntly says he is not doing so well. Janet asks about the trip, and Allan complains about the awful carriage ride. The Viscount then notices Allan's companions and asks who they are. Grill introduces himself simply as a good person. Real clear there, buddy. Charlotte just says she's an assistant. Allan looks away, thinking that for an exile, he is being treated quite nicely. He tells them to stop the small talk and just take him to his room. But as he looks around, he can't help but wonder why he came. This place is called the Land of Dead Spirits of Lonia, also known by the charming name, the Sacrificial Fortress. It's named for the many sacrifices once made to appease the dead. The castle's main defense is just a few hastily built walls, and they're supposed to hold off zombies for about a month until spring arrives. Allan sees a group of prisoners walking by in chains, and asks if they're all being sent to the front lines. Harmon confirms that they are. He then adds that Allan only needs to tend to the wounded and hold funerals. Okay, Allan thinks, that seems manageable. But then Harmon reveals that at least 2,000 or 3,000 people die here every year. Our hero's calm expression completely shatters. He asks if he'll at least have some help. And Harmon says about 80 priests are here for purifications. The soldiers will also assist, so he shouldn't worry. He then notes that people sometimes die from overwork, but that's perfectly normal here. You know how it is. Just your typical workplace hazards. Allan demands booze from the Viscount, dramatically declaring he won't die sober and pitching a fit. Not wanting to deal with the drama, they quickly start handing him bottles of alcohol. He then tells Charlotte and Grill to go explore and have a good time. But he reminds them to be back before the death wave since they still have to protect him. With his mission complete, our guy slips into his room and shuts the door. Leaning against it, he thinks to himself that he played that part perfectly. Of course, he has no intention of actually drinking it. He touches a bottle, instantly turning the alcohol into holy water, and inspects it. He knows he'll never get through this mess without a steady supply of the stuff. Stashing the bottles in his inventory, he starts plotting how to make a whole lot more. As he did, he noticed a firearm hanging on the wall. He grabs it, remembering he'd read that guns existed in this world, but he never figured they'd be this common. Apparently, though, almost no one really uses them. People prefer melee weapons since guns are mostly for show in a world full of monsters. He figures it's because these guns use mana instead of gunpowder. You can fill it with mana to charge it, but the mana drain is insane. Even skilled mages get only 5 shots and each mana bullet takes 5 minutes to form. Allan begins charging the gun, figuring that in movies, 1 shot takes down a zombie. His plan is simple, make 1 bullet, aim, and shoot. He pulls the trigger, and to his shock, the bullet completely demolishes the wall. A system window popped up saying his divine aura had been activated. The explosion was so powerful that everyone outside heard it loud and clear. Harold stands there, wondering what bizarre hobby his prince has picked up now. Some soldiers glance his way, noting that he doesn't look too happy. One assumes he's just worried about the incoming death wave, but the others are convinced it's all because of that 7th prince. Harmon spins around asking if they'd rather be watching the prisoners, then gossiping like a bunch of old ladies. After they scatter, he sighs, admitting to himself that they were right. That dang spoiled good-for-nothing pampered prince. That complete waste of air is the main cause of his headache. He'd heard a huge crash from the prince's room yesterday, and when he went to check, Allan said he was invading a sensitive teen's privacy and to get out. Walking off, he'd muttered that the idiot must have broken something expensive. He remembers Parlock saying Allan had changed after the suicide attempt, maybe even lost his memory. He did everything that was needed back at the cemetery, and he even fought off a group of zombies to protect everyone. Harmon looks up lost in thought. The villagers' stories must be nonsense. Allan is probably just blackmailing him. But one question keeps bugging him. How did that fool beat a necromancer like Morgana? He decides it must be that Grill guy. He's clearly the real powerhouse in the group. Perhaps he ought to write up a letter of recommendation for him, so Grill can take the exam to become a holy knight. Suddenly loud screams echo. He turns, wondering if it's another prisoner revolt. He sprints over shouting, "What's all this ruckus before a major battle?" He's stunned to see Allan with a shovel pressed right to a man's throat. Allan is giving the guy an ice-cold stare, asking if he truly doesn't know who he is. Let's rewind to the day after they got to the Lonya mansion. People were already succumbing to the plague and severe overwork. And Allan is out there digging graves all by himself. He figured they didn't want his skills, they just needed free labor. He's in his plague doctor mask when the system confirms it has a cleansing spell. Allan wipes sweat from his brow, wondering how much time they have left. For now, the zombies weren't even approaching. Then a shout gets his attention. A man with a smug grin asks if he needs a little break. The system identifies him Hayes Hedron, the eldest son of the Earl. Hayes comments that by the looks of him, Allan must be an academy student. Allan walks closer. "Did I say I was from the academy?" Hayes scoffs. "Aren't you here for disciplinary punishment?" The other guys add that children from noble houses can easily avoid this stuff. So obviously Allan is just a nobody from some small village. If he wants a peaceful life, he should just listen, since Hayes is an earl's son. Hayes grins, saying he only came because of some maid they were teasing who then caused a big scene. The jerk then points straight at Charlotte, saying she'll do nicely. Allan quietly says her name. "Oh, she's your servant," Hayes asks. "I like her, she looks pretty good." "I'll take good care of her," he says. Allan just turns away. He'd rather dig graves. Hayes notices. "Hey, you're leaving already." He then calls out to Charlotte. She looks confused. "Yes, you," Hayes says. "Come over here." He grabs her hand. "It's better to have fun with me than your busy master." Charlotte pulls away firmly, saying she has no time for that. Hayes just smiles. "Don't you get it? No one's going to have fun with a commoner." Before he can finish, he screams in pain. Charlotte is crushing his hand. His friends yell his name in shock. Allan watches calmly, knowing she could have broken his arm easily. Hayes yanks his hand back, shouting, "Is brute force all you commoners have?" Allan sighs and tells her that's enough. But Hayes yells that she's a monster, just like her parents. He sneers that she must take after them. "Since half the dead become zombies, your parents probably did too." That crosses the line. Allan walks up and slams his shovel into the ground right next to Hayes. The guy almost has a heart attack on the spot. As he stammers, Allan calmly says, "Oops, I guess I misjudged my swing." Hayes tries to say something, but Allan smacks him. "My hand slipped." The blow sends Hayes flying to the ground. Hayes sputters, "Do you have any idea who I am?" Allan leans his shovel at his throat and asks, "Do you know who I am?" Just then Harmon arrives and tells Allan to back off. He shoves Allan aside, asking if he's starting problems again. Hayes claims Allan hit him and must be punished. Worried, Charlotte tries to defend him, but Allan just raises a hand and casts silence. Harmon is stunned. He can't utter a sound. A holy power spell, Allan calmly tells Harmon to inform this fool exactly who he is. Harmon reveals Allan is the 7th prince grandson of the Holy Emperor. Allan asks the fool if he gets it now whose maid he insulted and who he offended. Seeing Hayes tremble, he smiles, telling him not to be so nervous. A sincere apology will solve everything. Sometime later, Allan is locked up in the dungeon. Charlotte is there with him. She says the Holy Knight couldn't forgive injuring a noble's son. She feels it's her fault he's here for a week and apologizes. Allan calmly says it's because of that rude guy. She shouldn't worry. He'll just read. Looking out, he notes it's better anyway with the blizzard outside. Meanwhile, a soldier runs up to Harmon. He reports the prisoners can't keep up clearing snow because the blizzard's too strong. Harmon is distracted. He's still thinking about that incident, wondering if the prince even realizes what he did. He seems useless, but the Holy Emperor's blood flows in his veins. The soldier calls again, snapping Harmon out of it. He agrees they must clear the snow to maintain the wall's height. He glances away. It's freezing, he says, but there aren't many zombies. The soldier asks if they should report this to the imperial family. Harmon agrees that's best and tells them to gather the prisoners. They need to regroup. Soon, prisoners rush in as soldiers yell to close the gates. Seeing the wounded, they yell for priests to quickly help them. One man says zombies ambushed them from behind, hidden by the snow. He says everyone at the back was devoured. Soldiers yell for everyone to assemble and take position. They're ordered to man the walls and prepare for battle. From the wall, Harmon looks down, so that's why it was so quiet. The zombies were having an all-you-can-eat feast, and it's just days before Ammon's death anniversary. It's natural for zombies to go wild now, but no one imagined an attack from the rear. Were they really suppressing their instincts, hiding under the snow this whole time? The undead are just walking corpses. They have no fear and run only on instinct. They have no gear or strategy. Dealing with them should be simple, right? But Harmon just watches a horde of zombies march toward the fortress. He sees this as a perfectly prepared army. He's stunned. This has never happened before. Then his shock deepens when one monster begins to speak, calling out to them. It tells them to be afraid and simply wait for death. Their fear is valid, it says, for he is the judge of this world. The Messiah who will grant salvation to this world through death. Turns out he serves Judai, the god of death. A system window reveals he's a vampire count. His age is a mystery, a bite steals mana, and he's an arrogant necromancer. Meanwhile, Allan's wondering about the noise outside and why his food is late. He's just trying to figure out what's going on. He heads to the window, complaining about a hungry prince being ignored. Just then, Janet rushes in, calling his name. Allan insists he wasn't escaping, then urges Janet to leave immediately. Walking to the bars, he reminds Janet he's technically still a prisoner. But Janet says that hardly matters with an army of the dead outside. Allan jokes, so you guys are just short-staffed? No, it's a real horde, Janet says. The vampire brought a zombie regiment. Allan wonders if they're imagining things. Why would a high-level monster be here? Janet explains that the creature speaks their language and commands others. It's without a doubt a vampire. He unlocks the cell, admitting he doesn't know the full story. But a holy knight is currently holding them back. The fortress might fall. They have to evacuate, and he'll escort Allan. Suddenly the ceiling crumbles and Allan asks about the noise. Janet guesses it's a zombie squad and urges him toward the back exit. But a zombie mob smashes through the wall, landing right inside the cell. Startled, Allan spins around. What in the world was that? Janet shouts that the monster literally threw a ball of zombies at them. Allan grips his shovel. If it's this bad in here, he can't even imagine what's waiting outside. He shuts the cell door, telling Janet to snap out of it and command the troops. Every person they kill just adds to the zombie army. Janet scrambles off, saying he'll find shelter for the civilians. As Allan fends off the zombies, he wonders about his next move. Before, the monsters were low level, so it was manageable. But the sheer number of these things is overwhelming. He starts casting magic, thinking his only real option is to flee. He unleashes a wave of holy water, and the zombies shriek in agony. Once the zombies collapse, Allan opens the door and steps out. He figures he should use this chance to get outside now. He slips through the hole in the wall only to hear terrified screams. He sees a horde of zombies swarming civilians and soldiers alike. A wounded man already bitten cries out in despair. There's simply nowhere left to run. Soldiers form a shield wall between the monsters and the people, but they're flanked. Zombies attack from behind and screams fill the air. Hearing this, Allan questions how long he can last. But thanks to all the holy water he's made, he might have a chance. Lifting his shovel, he mutters that things are not going according to plan. He slams it into the ground, feeling like the goddess Gaia is working overtime just for him. He channels his magic and the system window appears. He conjures a massive flood of holy water, which begins to pour down on the battle. It's like a divinely powered sprinkler system. The zombies are just mindlessly wandering until something makes them look up at the sky. Their skin begins to melt as the undead monsters cry out in agony. They clutch desperately at their burning skin. The villagers just watch this unfold, totally bewildered. One person asks, are the zombies actually melting in the rain? Another points out their wounds are healing and wonders if it's holy water. It dawns on them holy water is literally falling from the clouds. Someone yells it must be the goddess's blessing, but another villager shuts that down. This isn't a divine miracle. Our hero did this. They all look and see the holy water is centered right on Allan. As for our hero, Allan looks completely drained. He poured too much mana into that spell and now he's out of fuel. The villagers are in complete disbelief, wondering how this exiled prince can wield holy water. Someone notes that, yes, he was banished from the palace, but he's still the grandson of the legendary hero who defeated the undead king Ian 50 years prior. That heroic lineage must mean something, right? A soldier steps forward, shouting to the crowd and asking if they need help. It seems the Lord has opened his basement as a shelter for everyone. The villagers don't hesitate. They immediately run for safety, yelling that they're alive and have survived this terrible ordeal, shouting thanks to our hero as they go. Allan just stands there looking incredibly tired. He mutters that he only made it rain within the fortress walls, and even that completely wiped him out. He calls the soldiers over, praising their good work, but says they must now go help the Holy Knight. The soldiers share an awkward glance and apologize, explaining they lack the right weapons for fighting zombies. Allan just points, explaining regular weapons won't work on the undead, so he'll grant them a blessing. He admits it's his first time granting a buff, so he doesn't know how long it will hold. A few moments pass. Their weapons are now divinely enhanced. A soldier stares at his sword completely baffled, asking what exactly a buff is. Allan just says, "Trust me, your weapons are actually useful now." He then reminds them they owe him for their lives and it's time to repay that debt. The fortress gates swing open and Allan gives it to them straight. This is a fight for their lives. Outside, it is pure chaos. Soldiers are already clashing with zombies all around. A zombie spots the emerging group and instantly charges them. One soldier swings his sword, taking the zombie down in a single hit. The man stands there stunned, gazing at his blade, now glowing with holy power. He shouts that he barely touched it and the creature just fell. Their weapons truly have holy power. Realizing this, the soldiers get fired up. They charge the horde, shouting that the zombies are no match and that they're coming to help their comrades. They were slicing through monsters, feeling pretty confident they could actually win this. After all, with the descendant of a legendary hero on their side, what could possibly go wrong? Then an absolute nightmare of a boss monster gallops in on a flaming horse, swinging a blade of pure dark energy. The soldiers are frozen in absolute terror. Its aura is so powerful it unleashes a shockwave that vaporizes several zombies just by passing. And for the record, those were its own allies. It doesn't even care, plowing right through a few soldiers as well. One poor soul survives, but collapses to the ground, shaking from pure fear. Staring down Dohan's menacing weapon, he thinks, "We can't possibly beat this thing. We're absolutely finished." That's when Allan casually strolls up, points his gun at the beast, and says calmly, "My apologies for this. It's only my second time, so I'm still getting the hang of things." Elsewhere on the battlefield, a vampire is observing the entire scene unfold. He can sense all that life force, a fresh meal he hasn't enjoyed in 50 years. My man has been on a strict diet, and today is officially his cheat day. He's pondering how tasty these humans might be, and if he turns them into zombies, just how much stronger his forces will become. This vampire is having a little flashback about his whole glow-up story. He's waited 50 long years for a chance like this. He started as a simple zombie and leveled his way up to become a vampire. He explains that vampires are ranked by their mana, which is basically their power level. And since he's a freshly turned vampire, the others haven't acknowledged his rank yet. But he's confident because he has a special item, the Skull of King Amen. With this skull, he can farm mana in decades, a task that normally takes over 100 years. He currently commands an army of 20,000 zombies, and he plans to rank up from his count title, eventually aiming for king. He's become so powerful that ordinary holy water is practically a joke to him now. He scoffs at the knights below, thinking the pathetic fools should just surrender and join the undead. Back at the fortress, Harmon is busy shouting orders. He's telling everyone to maintain their fire. They have to hold their ground and keep the zombies from breaking through. He knows that as the sun sets, the undead get a major power-up. They must withstand at least one more giant wave. If this position falls, the village is doomed. Harmon worries the zombies are already in their territory. He can't leave this command post. The main horde is far too close. His mind races. Can the village possibly hold on? And if it falls, what will happen then? He grips his sword knuckles white, wishing the Holy Emperor would magically appear and save them all. Just then he hears a commotion and turns to see Charlotte dragging an entire arsenal of weapons. She declares that the village is safe because their friends are handling it. So now she's here to protect the ground where her prince is fighting. Charlotte then dumps the entire arsenal at Harmon's feet like she's dropping off groceries. She mentions casually that she heard he needed some weapons brought up to the wall. Harmon just stands there staring, his jaw practically on the floor. He'd mistaken her for just a simple servant. But even elite soldiers couldn't carry that much gear. So where on earth did she get that kind of power? Trying to process it, he scans the field, confident they can win. If worst comes to worst, he'll just punch through their lines, and he'll take the vampire's head himself. Just then, a huge beast starts loading zombies into a catapult. They're about to launch the undead at the castle, a huge zombie ball soaring right at them. The soldiers scream that a massive wave of the dead is coming. Harmon leaps in front of Charlotte, yelling that it's too dangerous. He demands she get behind him. He focuses energy into his blade, praying to the war god for strength. But Charlotte simply steps right in front of him. She draws her sword and with one brutal swing splits the zombie ball clean in two. Then she casually lands from that insane height like it was nothing. Harmon just stands there yelling, "How did you manage that?" He stares at the monster parts in shock, thinking, did she just slice them in half? The zombies this girl took down aren't getting up. And that's the strange part. To permanently stop the undead, you need holy weapons or to destroy the head. So what kind of sword is she using? Charlotte then tears across the field at inhuman speed, wiping out monsters everywhere. Harmon watches the whole display, carefully analyzing her form. Her swordsmanship is sloppy. She's relying on raw power, not any refined skill. But that raw destructive force is unmistakable. It's the imperial style of the Holy Cross unit. He calls out her name, and she immediately turns around. He loudly asks where she learned that technique. He even asks if she's part of the Holy Imperial family. Charlotte just casually says she's the 7th Prince's aide and learned it from a book. Seriously, the chibi faces in this series are top tier. Then she dashes off before he can ask anything else. Harmon's just left standing there thinking he must be hearing things. Meanwhile, inside the castle, a soldier drops a crate of bottles, yelling for the priests. He tells them to use these for healing once the holy water runs out. Janet asks where all these bottles even came from. The soldier explains our boy provided them, bringing holy water just in case. Janet sighs in relief, saying how incredibly lucky they are. Then he asks, so where is our boy right now? The soldier says after Allan returned, he took more troops to help defend the walls. Janet's eyes go wide. He asks if Allan fought, came back, and then left again. The soldier just nods. Yeah, I thought he already had your permission. Janet looks away, muttering about everyone praising our boy and his amazing holy power. It's not a trust issue, but seriously, is anyone planning on staying inside the castle? Out on the streets, zombies disguised as soldiers appear, their faces covered with cloth. Allan and his troops scale the wall, but a guard spots them right away. He quickly masks up, claiming they're reinforcements. The guard is shocked that anyone is still alive. He notes the main gate is a mess. Allan agrees, saying that's why they were sent here. But he knows the main gate is the real disaster, so this flank is perfect. No one's going to check his little squad too carefully. And here's the catch. He gave away all the holy water, leaving none for himself. He can't use his new skill ghost soldiers. Raising proper soldiers is too hard, so he used village corpses instead. He knows if they're discovered, it's game over. So it's best to keep everyone's faces covered. A guard suggests he help from the rear where it's safer. Allan says he has business here. He reveals a gun, saying he plans to use it. The guard is baffled. Guns are useless in a fight like this. Allan aims towards the fight. Actually, he says, this is the perfect vantage point. He cites the vampire boss, adding that he has a clear shot from here. He asks for the goddess's blessing, then pulls the trigger. Meanwhile, Harmon leaps from the wall with a shout. A knight turns, calling him deputy, and reports the evacuation is complete. The knight adds that, luckily, the situation hasn't worsened. Soldiers got holy weapons and skilled fighters appeared, matching the holy knights. Harmon's bewildered. He asks what on earth happened while he was on the wall. But the knight says the vampire is still a problem and they're stumped. Harmon swats a nearby zombie and asks about ranged attacks. The knights say they've tried arrows and stones. But the vampire's magic shield blocked everything. Even a holy water cannon Harmon cuts in. He says that wouldn't pierce the vampire's barrier either. So they'd have to fight through the whole horde to even reach the boss. He thinks there's no way to counterattack. Then a nearby soldier spots something, asking what in the world that is. He points, saying no ordinary priest could ever do that. Harmon looks where he's pointing and his eyes widen in shock. It's Allan holding his gun, which is glowing with brilliant holy light. He calls out to Gaia, goddess of love and mercy. He prays for holy salvation, asking for power to break the shield and smite the dead. Harmon stares, utterly speechless, wondering who this man is. Particles of light reflect across Allan's face. This is clearly a direct blessing from the goddess Gaia. Even veteran priests rarely see power like this. Harmon didn't know Rania had a priest this strong. Charlotte strolls up and casually drops the bomb. That's our guy. With a small smile, she adds, I can see his light. This girl is totally fangirling over him. Harmon's mind just completely freezes. The prince, who defied goddess Gay, now has her blessing. How is that even possible? If that's really the 7th prince, has he accepted the goddess's love? Allan fires calmly, noting this vampire must fear the goddess's power. The shot streaks across the battlefield, striking monsters as it flies. The divine blast hits the vampire's shield and punches right through it. The shield cracks and the shot hits him right where it counts. The vampire lets out a piercing scream. That's what you get for monologuing. Now for a quick flashback. A while back, Allan read the Holy Emperor's book on how to collect holy power. Interestingly, mages use mana priests use prayers and necromancers use life and magic. So to be a priest, he would need to sacrifice his life and magic. But was that worth it? He already had plenty of holy water. But as the Holy Emperor's grandson, if he could use that power without the sacrifice, maybe the priest class was worth a try. Back to now, the vampire is still screaming, the point of impact glowing and burning. He frantically calls for reinforcements. Allan thinks to himself that the shield was tough, but he managed to break it. He's breathing hard. That shot took a lot out of him. Nearby soldiers start shouting that the zombie squad is retreating. Allan thinks it's a shame the monster lived, but at least they've bought some time to reorganize. He looks down to see soldiers staring up at him, completely amazed. With a smile, he raises his hand and asks, all right, shall we help the injured now? After that, he and his zombie team head out. A soldier marvels that he's never seen the goddess's blessing, asking if our hero is a veteran priest. If that's true, the injured will be healed fast. They're so lucky to have a person like him here. Harmon looks on with a surprised face, still wondering if that is really the prince. Could a worthless exile really be capable of something like this? He also wonders why someone as skilled as Charlotte would become his assistant. And this spirals into Harmon's internal debate about his trust issues. He remembers doubting the village elder and wonders if Allan truly changed after his amnesia. Or maybe Allan has returned to the person he was before Lady Ulyshia's blessing. And that, of course, means it's backstory time. Ulishia was the mother to the first and seventh princes. She was a simple village girl, but one who came from the southern Aeson. The Empire and southern Aeson had been enemies for hundreds of years. Due to this, many in high society completely refused to accept her. But the Holy Emperor's son fell completely and deeply in love with her anyway. They married, and soon Luam was born. However, the Holy Imperial family's political power was immense, so two noble ladies were assigned to him as additional political wives. More children followed, and Ulishia eventually gave birth to the seventh prince. His mind returns to Charlotte's incredible skill, wondering why she'd served the prince. This kicks off Harmon's inner thoughts about his difficulty with trust. When the prince was 10 years old, his mother passed away. A vampire attacked her during a night walk with her sons. The first prince, who barely survived, was left with a curse on his heart. After that day, the kind seventh prince seemed to lose all his emotions. Harmon was told the shock of his mother's passing had changed Allan completely. So now Harmon is just standing there trying to make sense of all this. He thinks to himself, okay, so he supposedly has amnesia. But after that incredible display of power, his skills are clearly unaffected. And that makes absolutely no sense. Right now, Harmon's mind is racing. He wonders why the prince would hide such amazing powers for so long. Then it hits him. Maybe he wanted to avoid the Imperial family's watch. And really, who could blame him? Harmon starts connecting dots, guessing the prince is planning a major revenge plot. What if he orchestrated his exile just to grow stronger in secret? Away from all the nosy holy knights who report back to the palace, the prince has definitely had a difficult life. The upper class treated him horribly, constantly insulting his mother. So perhaps he does plan to return and make them all regret it. Harmon wonders if the prince has been plotting this the entire time, enduring all that cruelty just to prepare for the ultimate comeback. He thinks about the holy knights, the family's private spy network. Of course, the prince would act strangely around them. Then he remembers the day that everything happened. He was in charge of security when the vampires appeared. Allan ordered him to get reinforcements, a decision he regrets. Harmon still blames himself for that day. He couldn't protect them. So Harmon makes a choice. If the prince wants revenge, he'll help him. But first they have to resolve this Alonia problem. You can't plan for revenge with a more immediate threat at your door. A short while later, Harmon is walking when he notices a soldier. He calls out to ask if the man is on patrol, but gets no response. Harmon calls again. "Excuse me, I'm speaking to you." He assumes the wind blew his voice away, but then sees something odd. This soldier is walking through the pitch darkness without a light. His instincts scream that something is very wrong. That isn't normal. That is definitely not a living person. Without pause, Harmon draws his sword and charges the suspicious figure. He gets a good look at its face and freezes. He thinks, is that a zombie? Before he can react, 3 arrows slam into the ground near him. He whips his head around to look. A whole squad of zombies is just standing there. While fighting, he feels they radiate holy power, not demonic energy. Harmon is stunned. This doesn't make any sense for the undead. He shatters one zombie's sword and moves in to attack. But before the blow lands, Allan appears, and he just casually yells, "Stop!" Instantly, they're frozen in place. Harmon's brain pretty much short-circuits. He just gawks at Allan, completely baffled by what is happening. Allan calmly tells Harmon to lower his sword. As they walk, Allan asks if the troop assignments are done mentioning an undead problem. But Harmon can hardly pay attention to that. He's still trying to process what he just saw. He's about to ask, but Allan mentions the anniversary of King Ammon's death is after midnight. Allan wonders aloud if that will power up the zombie horde. But Harmon finally asks the one question our hero was avoiding. He asks if Allan was using necromancy. Our boy denies it, claiming he has no idea what that is. Inside his head, he's cursing his luck. Of all people, this guy had to be the one to see him. Unsurprisingly, Harmon doesn't believe that flimsy excuse. He asks if Allan was so desperate that he turned to necromancy. Allan admits he summoned some undead since they desperately needed backup. But with his memory loss, he has no clue where he learned the skill. It just kind of happened. Harmon asks if he made a deal with the demon. Then why do his zombies have holy power? Our hero insists he's not hiding a single thing from him. Then he asks if Harmon is going to report him to the Inquisition. Harmon says it's his duty. And internally, our guy's just screaming at how bad this is. But then something totally unexpected occurs. Harmon suddenly drops to his knees right in front of Allan. Our hero is just confused. Before he can react, Harmon looks up, vowing to protect him no matter the cost. So our hero is just standing there staring at Harmon. But he's thinking, wait, didn't this guy absolutely despise me? Now he's offering to help. His mind just couldn't compute what was happening. So he flat out asks if Harmon is just saying this to keep an eye on him. But Harmon looks down seriously and insists that's not it at all. He's about to share some childhood trauma, but Allan cuts him off. Dude, save the backstory for later. They have a serious zombie situation to handle. He knows they can't let this golden opportunity slip by. Meanwhile, the local friendly vampire is having his big villain speech moment. He's screaming at his undead army, telling them to feast on the living and multiply. And he promises every single one of them will become kings. The guy inhales deeply, opens his jaw wide, and unleashes a massive wave of dark power. The soldiers witness this, and they are quite reasonably panicking. One officer tries to be brave, shouting for everyone to hold the line. Another soldier is on the verge of a breakdown, saying he's not sure he can do this. The poor guy's face still stings from our hero's earlier smack, thinking, how can I fight like this? Janet stands there having a complete and total crisis of confidence. He looks at his soldiers, then at the enormous horde of monsters shambling their way. He's having some serious second thoughts about his career choices. He thinks to himself, maybe I should just order a retreat. But just then, the soldiers notice a figure in a robe. Relief washes over them. It's a priest. Allan begins casting his divine spells. His magic weakens the undead, infusing the soldiers' weapons with holy power. A huge grin spreads across Janet's face. He's thrilled, yelling, the priest is on their side, that the goddess is with them. Their morale skyrockets as the soldiers charge into the fray, ready to take on the monster horde, and Harmon isn't missing out on the fun. Leaping high, he swings his blade, invoking Warheim, the god of war, for strength. He plunges his sword down, unleashing a powerful shockwave of energy that obliterates every zombie in his path. He sees his chance to rally the troops and seizes the perfect moment. So he charges directly at the vampire. Watching from his throne, the vampire is clearly not pleased. His expression is one of pure irritation, complaining that the priest is foiling his entire plan. The divine energy prevents his zombies from regenerating. Enraged, the vampire leaps from his throne, screaming that his patience has run out. Harmon takes the opening, rushing the vampire with his holy infused blade. But as he strikes, the vampire effortlessly leaps right over him. That undead fiend is impossibly fast. He lands on a zombie's head, which begins to smolder under his feet. Harmon shouts for everyone to stop him. The bloodsucker is heading for the priest. That's when things get wild. As if he wasn't scary enough, the vampire transforms into a hulking monster. Snatching a soldier like a doll, he taunts them, asking if they truly think they can stop him. Meanwhile, Allan sprints through the city, his mind racing. He thinks, I knew he'd target me. He can sense my holy power just as I see mana. It's inevitable he'll find me sooner or later. So Allan has a plan, find a better spot and use the city walls for cover against the monster. But suddenly, a huge piece of the wall comes flying right at him. Allan narrowly avoids it, diving out of the way just in time. The massive stone slab smashes into the spot where he just stood. The colossal monster appears, mocking him. Did you think walls could stop me? It opens its grotesque maw, charging up another powerful blast. But our boy thinks, I knew that wouldn't stop you, you monster. Which is why I prepared for this. Time for Plan C. And you know what Plan C is. Charlotte. He shouts her name and she appears behind him holding a massive boulder. Her expression is grim as she soars forward with her rocky weapon. The monster unleashes its beam and the two attacks collide in a huge explosion. Allan just stares at Charlotte with his usual dumbfounded look. She actually blocked the monster's attack using earth magic. He realizes her wall won't hold for long against that kind of power. At this rate, they're both about to be vaporized. Then Grill rushes in like a worried father, helping Charlotte reinforce the wall. He's strained, admitting he can't wield a sword. He's determined to at least protect his daughter. Allan sees them struggling and has a thought. Buddy with zero power, what exactly is the plan? But instead of judging, Allan decides to help out. He sends his magic over and Grill shouts as holy power flows into him. Meanwhile, our hero is having a little realization. He knows his sacred power is unstable, but then an idea sparks. What if he just injects his holy energy into their barrier? He starts praying to the goddess for the strength to defend them. He asks for a shield against the dead, with a little love and forgiveness. His prayer is answered. He creates a barrier so powerful it stuns the monster. The creature was caught mid-attack. Then a massive explosion of light erupts everywhere. When the dust clears, a panicked Charlotte desperately searches for our hero. She spots Grill on the ground and screams his name in terror. As she rushes toward him, Allan stops her, saying, "Hey, calm down. He's all right. He just passed out." Drained from the spell, our boy tells Charlotte not to worry. She asks if he's okay. "I feel awful." "Yo," he says, "but I'll be fine." The monster, meanwhile, is writhing on the ground in agony. Allan's holy energy is basically frying it from the inside. Seeing his chance, Allan says, "Okay, this is our opening." But Charlotte brings him back to reality. "You can hardly even stand. You're in no condition to fight." And for once, Allan doesn't argue. He admits he is out of magic and holy water, so attacking would be reckless. The new plan is to grab Grill and escape into the underground. He realizes his holy power drained way faster than it should have. Just then, a skull pulsing with dark aura catches his attention. He stops cold, realizing something feels wrong. The mana source isn't the vampire, it's coming from somewhere else. Noticing he stopped, Charlotte calls out his name. Allan walks to the skull, telling her to hold on. He picks it up and a system window appears. It's the skull of the Necromancer King Eamon, and it comes with some amazing buffs and magic boost from 20 to 200%, a 10% increase in recovery rate, and a 10% buff for all magic skills. He's basically hit the jackpot. But this is where things get really interesting. The weak vampire gets up muttering about recovery, then he looks down and freezes. "Where is my skull?" The guy's absolutely freaking out. He sees Allan holding it and charges screaming, but Allan stays completely calm. Just reading the item description in his menu and thinking, "Aha, so that's how it works." Then he places the skull right on his head. A system alert pops up. Activation unstable due to lack of sacred power. It's basically a temporary item, but Allan isn't fazed at all. Glowing chains form around him. He declares himself Legion Emperor of the Divine Inheritance. The system accepts his command. Suddenly, 2 knights appear and restrain the vampire. They slap on magical cuffs as one of the skeletons begins to speak. It comments on the powerful stench of death clinging to him. He calls the vampire a heretic who defied the world's laws, their very reason for existing. The skeleton speaks cryptically, saying the vampire will soon understand upon hearing the order. A system window helpfully clarifies that these are sacred knights. At this point, the vampire is completely freaking out. What is even happening? He starts screaming that they are the ones who have broken the world's rules. He yells that they are undead beings that were revived using holy power. He scoffs at the absurdity, accusing them of betraying Yudi, the god of death. Allan casually aims his gun at the vampire's head and admits, "I'm a bit embarrassed myself." He invites the vampire to admire his weapon, a gift from the priest and holy power, and promptly blows the vampire's head clean off. So after that festive farewell, our main character stands there, gazing at the vampire's remains with his holy knights standing guard behind him. But that powerful shot completely exhausted him, and our hero simply collapses. His summoned knights then begin to fade from sight. With their departure, the monsters battling the soldiers also vanish without a trace. All the survivors of this nightmarish battle begin to celebrate. Harmon rushes into the city, finding Charlotte cradling the wounded Griel. Just then, an old man gallops to the fortress, asking if he has arrived too late. He's told, yeah, for the most part. The old man explains he'd heard of strange activity fearing the Necromancer King's return. Turns out, nope. Instead, it was just some vampire showing off. He is puzzled, though, how one vampire gathered 20,000 corpses. He notes Ronya's populace is mainly prisoners and townspeople, and seeing this vampire's swift defeat, perhaps they aren't as powerful as legends say. But something feels off. A strange energy has lingered here since his arrival. He senses traces of a huge conflict between sacred and magical forces, which means a major battle took place on this very spot. If the vampire wielded such power, who on earth could have possibly stopped him? A knight wonders aloud if a saint was present. The old man agrees that would be ideal, as vampires have begun blending in with humans. Having a priest or priestess on hand would make handling them much simpler. Another knight chimes in with a bit of lore. Apparently, God split himself into pieces for fun awakening sacred power in humanity. This explains why those who wield such power are incredibly rare and hard to find. The old man waves it off, saying, "The castle has no one equipped to handle this mess." He begins giving orders to dispatch priests, healers, and alchemists. He commands the soldiers to prioritize the citizens before dealing with any prisoners. As the old man prepares to leave, a knight informs him the 7th prince is also present, wondering if the old man would be willing to see him. But spoiler alert, the old man was not at all happy. A menacing aura just explodes from him, scaring the daylights out of the knights. He glares, asking, "Did you just suggest I meet the 7th prince?" At this point, the knights were probably wishing they could just disappear. The old man rides on past them coldly, telling them to go back. He has no interest in a child who shamed his mother, calling Allan his cursed grandson. Just then, a system window pops up with the grumpy old man's profile. He's Celt Owl's 105 years old and also the Holy Emperor. He scoffs, betting Allan is probably hiding in a corner of his estate right now. Sometime later, Harmon kneels before the Emperor, reporting how our hero defeated the vampire. Celt almost jumps from his throne. "You said what now?" The court starts whispering that this is the most ridiculous story they've heard in years. It's like their brains literally cannot process this news. The old man with a completely done expression asks, "Are we discussing the same Allan?" Harmon calmly agrees it sounds unbelievable, but that it's true. Celt's anger flares as he grips the throne, calling Harmon a traitor. He shouts, asking if it's really about that same pathetic grandson of his. Then Archbishop Raffaloria, another 100-year-old fellow, steps in, noting the Emperor is a bit worked up, but admits he has the same doubts. He asks if they're truly talking about that shameless, weak, and selfish prince, that immature, good-for-nothing, cowardly excuse for a royal they all know. How could anyone seriously believe he managed to kill a vampire? Harmon thinks to himself, "Yep, being on the 7th Prince's team is tough." He admits that he wouldn't have believed it either, if he hadn't seen it himself. He insists he is only reporting what he witnessed with his own eyes. But Raffalaria mentions something interesting. Apparently, reports claim the people of Ronya are singing the 7th Prince's praises. A few have even started calling him a saint. He suggests they look into it as it might relate to a strange energy he sensed before. He's just concerned Allan might be stealing glory. Celt asks if he thinks it was Allan's own power. Raffalaria quickly says no, he's just trying to be thorough, and to make sure Allan isn't taking credit for someone else's achievement. The old man settles down a bit and turns to Harmon. He says whether it's true or not, everyone who defended Ronya will be rewarded. He promotes Harmon to Count Jean and Holy Knight, giving him territory in the northwest. Oh, and he's also cutting Allan's exile period short. Once Allan recovers, he is ordered to return to the castle. Later on, Harmon arrives at a castle door and announces he has returned. A voice from inside tells him to come on in. Entering, he lights a candle and approaches the bed, asking if the person is recovering well. And here we meet Lon Owls, the 27-year-old first prince. This guy immediately hits Harmon with the most cutting remark. That's a funny joke from someone whose accidental death would be meaningless. He adds that his senses are failing him and they don't have much time left for talks like this. So Harmon should drop the act and come here. Luan says he heard what went down on the battlefield. Suddenly he snatches Harmon by the collar, his rage ignited. He's furious that Harmon shielded the prince. He roars, asking how he could defend the trash who shamed their mother. He shakes Harmon, demanding to know if he has lost his mind. With a death glare, he asks if Harmon's bailing on him now. He thinks Harmon made the worst choice ever, siding with that useless prince, because there's no way he could ever become the next emperor. But before Luan finishes, Harmon calmly says his name. He says Allan has pushed himself too far and is bleeding again. Luan freezes in shock. He forces a smile, saying he knew Harmon wasn't like that. He quickly pulls his hand away. Harmon says no apology is needed. It's not his fault nor the prince's. He declares that he alone is responsible for their mother's death. No matter the orders, he should have defied them and stood his ground. Luan insists he shouldn't blame himself. Without him, they'd all be dead. They only survived because of reinforcements. Harmon then asks, "Do you hate the prince?" Luan scoffs. "Are you seriously asking me that? That boy disgraced their family, wasting the life their mother gave him." Harmon poses a question. What if the prince made himself a mess on purpose? What if he was hiding his true goal, to avenge Lady Yulia? What if his disgraceful acts were a ploy to gain power by being exiled? Luan just stares at him, wondering if he's gone crazy. He asks if Harmon's head injury was worse than they thought. Harmon simply says he must follow the Holy Emperor's command, so he will be leaving for Ronya very soon. Luan looks away, annoyed. If it's an order, then that bastard can finally go home. 3 weeks later, after the dead ravaged Ronya, we see a lone man. He slams a shovel into the dirt, wondering how much longer this will take. After 3 weeks of back-breaking work, this place finally looks like a village. He grumbles to himself that he's getting no help at all. Then he spots a box. He wonders if it belonged to the dead. If they died ages ago, these things are basically finders keepers, right? He starts digging through it, calling it a reward for all his hard labor. Just then, a single piece of paper catches his eye. It hasn't aged today. He wonders if it's valuable or something special. We cut to the prince's room, where Charlotte asks if he's ready for more. The prince shakes his head. He says he hasn't eaten this well in ages. She reminds him he was out for 3 weeks. The doctor ordered him to eat up. Honestly, the fact that he woke up at all is a miracle. The doctor asks just how much sacred power the prince actually used. That much power should have turned him into a corpse, but the medicine helped. Even so, his body is completely drained. Looks like he's stuck in bandages. Allan jokes, asking if he's a mummy now. Charlotte begins to unwrap them. The doctor wonders why he's being so morbid. This is just his unique healing style. He also examined Charlotte while Allan was out. Allan asks if something's wrong. The doctor explains that it's normal for people to get injured, or even lose limbs, but her body's growth is anything but ordinary. It reminds him of the Holy Emperor from 50 years back, after His Majesty's defeat by Ammon left him comatose. His body wrecked by sacred power had to be rebuilt from scratch. That's when he evolved, surpassing all human limitations, which was a key factor in his victory over Ian. He thinks Charlotte might have that same potential. Allan glances at Charlotte. A system window appears with her stats hardworking, focused, a superhuman body, and at the very bottom, a vow to do anything for him. While he's reading her stats, she catches him staring and asks what's up. Allan thinks she should be the hero, not a weakling like him. He claims he's bored and asks her to grab a book for him to read. Once she's gone, he thinks about his new skill. It's great, but the recoil is nasty. His body just can't take it. Just then, Charlotte returns with some books. She brought back Magic Theory by the Emperor, Sacred Power and Dawn, and the Doctrine of Resurrection. Allan cracks one open, pleased by how detailed everything is. He spots a dedication to the great goddess Gaia. He thinks, wow, this guy's faith is intense, but quickly moves on. He has to master the fundamentals quickly to control his power. Suddenly a knock. It's Harmon walking right in. He gives the usual pleasantries, glad to see Allan recovering so well. Allan asks about his trip, mentioning he heard Harmon went to the capital. So what brings him back so soon? But his train of thought quickly derails. He recalls their last meeting, which ended with a huge reward. He's expecting a repeat. Maybe some gold or a nice vacation. He looks at Harmon with sparkling eyes. But Harmon brings bad news. The Holy Emperor has summoned him to the castle. So naturally, Allan boots Harmon right out of the room, slams the door shut, and pretends the whole conversation never happened. Harmon, however, is persistent. He stands outside the door, insisting Allan must return to the castle. A while later, Charlotte mentions that Harmon is still waiting outside. Allan tells her to just ignore him. He's really committing to the act. Harmon continues to call for him from behind the door. Charlotte asks if he really doesn't want to go back. Allan's answer is obvious. Of course not. Why return to that dangerous place? He thinks to himself that he still has no clue who was backing Morgana. Maybe he should have asked a few questions before finishing her off. Charlotte stands there looking a little downcast. Allan notices and reassures her. He'll handle it so she can just ignore Harmon. But despite that, Harmon just wouldn't give up. At last, Charlotte emerges with a message from Allan. Harmon's eyes light up, asking if the prince is finally returning to the palace. Charlotte's reply is possibly the harshest rejection ever. Allan told him to get lost before he gets salted like a slug. Harmon then asks if she is heading home for the night. She confirms, saying she and her father live in a nearby hut. He offers to escort her at night, but Charlotte politely refuses. Harmon gets serious, asking if she knows why Allan refuses to return. Charlotte relays Allan's warning that the castle is a dangerous place. Harmon reflects, admitting the prince's position there is indeed precarious. With an annoyed look, she thinks Allan's own family treats him terribly, as she suspected. Some relatives literally want to see him dead. She just wishes she was stronger so she could better protect him. Arriving at the village, Grill waves, noting her late return. Then he spots Harmon and asks, wait, is that the knight? Harmon asks if Grill also fought in the recent battle. Grill gets a bit bashful, saying of course he helped out. It's only natural. As Grill heads inside, Harmon praises his commendable spirit. He then asks Grill to share his feats from the battle. Charlotte goes inside as Grill casually mentions slaying 50 large zombies. He even snagged the vampire count's fangs as a souvenir. Inside, Charlotte spots something and asks what it is. Her eyes are fixed on a piece of paper. She points out an unfamiliar document on the dining table. Grill explains it's an old family heirloom he hasn't touched in ages. Harmon looks over and realization suddenly hits him. This document bears the seal of the legendary Harris family. The same Harris family that guarded Ronya's northern border 50 years ago. The family that was annihilated fighting the necromancer, King Ammon. They were the emperor's most loyal subjects, the bravest family in the kingdom. So why is their crest here, then the pieces all connect for Harmon? These two must be survivors from the Harris family. Now he finally understands the source of their incredible strength. Though their family fell, they protect Allan from the shadows. He realizes no one knows of their loyalty, yet they still protect the prince. Harmon says he'll respect their wish to keep their mission a secret. He then offers to write her a letter of recommendation. He can even help her hone her skills further. Hearing this, both Charlotte and Grill are completely stunned. Grill exclaims, asking if she could really go to the castle. Harmon nods, saying her strength could easily earn her a noble title. It really wouldn't be that hard. They would teach her the Holy Empire's sword arts to better aid the prince. Charlotte's expression turns serious as she steps forward and accepts. Becoming a holy knight, if it means leaving His Highness, she'd rather not. For her, Allan always comes first. Titles are just a bonus. Harmon promises that if her goal is protecting Allan, he'll work just as hard beside her. He quietly vows to get the Harris family and Allan to the castle, no matter what it takes. Over at the church, before Harmon can even start begging our boy to come along, Allan just looks at him and agrees to head to the castle. Harmon is absolutely speechless. He just can't believe it. Allan's actually ready to go. While riding in the carriage, Harmon asks why he suddenly changed his mind. Allan, looking annoyed, asks what he could possibly mean. Harmon points out that just yesterday, Allan was slamming doors in his face to avoid this very trip. So what gives? It turns out Allan is completely hooked on a book series. But the village doesn't have the next volume, and the only place to find it is the royal library. Allan explains that since he only got dirty looks at the castle before, he figured he would just hide out in the library again. When they arrive in the capital, our boy peeks out the window at the crowds. Harmon asks for his impression, and Allan bluntly says, "The place stinks." He then calmly covers his nose with a handkerchief. He asks Harmon if the undead have started taking up residence in the capital. With that, Allan dashes into the street, accidentally bumping into a woman selling fruit. Harmon rushes after him, apologizing and explaining that they're in a hurry. The streets are packed with people, but our boy just keeps running. He thinks to himself that while the street seems busy and normal, he's positive he can smell a vampire. If he just follows that scent, he's sure to find it. Harmon finally catches up, asking if he smelled something strange. That's when Allan sees a girl's head resting on a box surrounded by flowers. Her skin is discolored and there are tears in her eyes. Then her eyes snap open blood red as she lets out a horrifying scream. Allan doesn't hesitate for a second. He strikes the head with his holy weapon. Charlotte asks if that was one of the undead. Harmon says he recalls hearing of similar cases. But he's cut off when Allan spots a body hanging from ropes nearby. He wonders if the head belonged to that corpse. It seems all the organs were removed, leaving just the skin. Suddenly, a voice shouts that a red-haired man just fled the scene. Harmon thinks that's almost certainly the culprit, and Allan agrees. But he notes that the stench has spread, making a direct track impossible now. Harmon decides he will file a report as soon as they arrive. Allan just sighs, thinking he only came to the capital to study magic. For some reason, he has a really bad feeling about this. The city is in turmoil. It turns out similar murders have been happening for a while. Now, with the infamous prince visiting the capital, is in chaos for more than one reason. Meanwhile, our boy has reached the castle safely, though that safety probably won't last long. Harmon shoots Allan a look, silently pleading for him to just stay put. He insists the matter's been reported, so Allan really needs to relax. With a banquet tomorrow, Allan should definitely lay low for today. Allan sighs, saying he gets it. How many times does he need to hear this? Harmon just calmly calls him a child, then turns his attention to Charlotte. He mentions he's off on patrol and suggests she explore the castle grounds. If anyone questions her, she can just drop his name. He's the vice captain after all. Allan declares he's just going to hide out in the library. Harmon points the way down the hall, then right at the courtyard. Charlotte says she'll meet him there after she's done exploring. Allan grumbles to himself, feeling like he's being treated like a kid. Walking down the hall, he thinks he must have been mistaken before. But that awful smell is back. A vampire must have gotten inside the castle. That scent feels dangerous, so maybe it's best to just keep quiet. He could just grab a book and get out of here. That would be way easier than getting mixed up in this mess. Pacing the corridor, Allan feels like he's just going in circles. Suddenly, a statue in the courtyard catches his attention. He wonders who it is, then gets closer. It's a statue of his mother. Just then, he hears someone swearing up a storm nearby. Peeking over, he sees an old man ranting about useless fools making him work. He casually suggests using their heads as decorations for the garden. Allan's first thought, okay, this guy is definitely a murderer. He's just about to leave when the old man suddenly turns. The man starts yelling that Allan should have reported to him immediately. Then he just orders him to grab the shovel and bags. Allan just stands there thinking, is this old guy totally crazy? But one look at his face convinces him not to argue. So he grabs the gear. As he lifts the ridiculously heavy bag, he wishes he'd changed into the new clothes Harmon gave him. This guy clearly thinks he's just a new servant in old clothes. He sets the stuff down politely, trying to clear up the misunderstanding. That's when he notices the old man's hands are caked with dirt. And being a decent guy, Allan offers up his handkerchief. He even suggests the old man shouldn't work alone and should ask for help. The old man suddenly grabs his hand, his expression turning serious. He murmurs, so the reports were true after all. His good-for-nothing grandson really has lost his memory, not even recognizing his own grandfather. A little while later, our boy stands nervously before some massive doors. From inside, a guard announces his official entrance. He steps into the royal hall and sees the old man on the throne. Allan just freezes, remembering their garden encounter. He can't believe it. That grumpy old gardener was the Holy Emperor. Kelt begins saying he heard of Allan's role in defending the Ronya estate. He also heard Allan killed the vampire count and asks him if it's true. Allan takes a moment before he answers. He realizes word of the incident has spread far and wide. The Holy Emperor must know a vampire was involved. So instead of taking all the credit, he confirms he killed the vampire, but says he needed help from Harmon, Charlotte, and everyone at the Ronya Manor. It was a team effort, not just his own strength. Sharing the credit seems like the safest play here. The Emperor sitting on his throne looks surprised, but says he understands. But Allan can tell he's still a bit annoyed. Before he can overthink it, the Emperor tells him to go rest. Allan politely agrees, wishing them luck with the vampire hunt before leaving. After he's gone, Emperor Kelt is lost in thought. Did Harmon tell Allan about the vampires? He remembers how useless the kid was just 6 months ago, yet now he acts with dignity. He even sensed the vampires here in the capital. He wonders if losing your memory can really change a person's entire character. If he'd known, maybe he would have hit his own head against a wall. He shakes off the thought, recalling 2 names Allan said, Grill and Charlotte. According to Harmon's report, they're survivors of the Harris family. If that's the case, taking out the vampire isn't so surprising. But what bothers him is the Harris family never used divine powers. They were purely swordsmen, so something here isn't adding up. He recalls Lord Gennett's report about Allan saving dying soldiers with holy power, and that wasn't even the wildest part of it. The report claimed he used a goddess's blessing and killed a vampire with a decorative gun. At the time, Kelt thought it was all complete nonsense. Kelt asked the men beside him for their thoughts. They immediately insist that it's obviously a lie. Allan wasn't there long, and the masked hero just had a similar build. They figure it must have been a simple mistake. But one man asks if it's the Emperor's bloodline, how else could it happen? Kelt sits there annoyed, thinking he'll have to give up the throne soon. The big problem is he has no suitable heir. He doesn't even have someone he can truly rely on. If that day with Ulia never happened, he would have chosen Luan. That incident is exactly what made Luan so cold. While he's lost in his thoughts, his men argue that Allan is a known good-for-nothing. He couldn't possibly have done such amazing things. Their bickering gets so loud that the old Emperor finally snaps. Man, this guy really has a short fuse. He roars that if they want to keep their teeth, they should shut up now. And right on cue, Count Palmer walks in. This guy happens to be Luan's right-hand man. He calmly suggests that since time is on their side, they should investigate further. Why not use this opportunity to look into the matter more deeply? Lady Ulish's memorial is in 2 months, and since Allan is helping with the vampire, it's best he stays until then. Why not let him relax until the banquet? The old man happily agrees with the idea. He notes a banquet is coming, so there's no rush. They'll just follow Palmer's suggestion. Meanwhile, our hero is completely lost. He's wandering the halls, thinking the castle is an absolute maze. He's been lost for hours. He finally stumbles into the library, only to be surprised by someone already inside. The girl quickly apologizes, saying she'll leave immediately. Allan tells her she's welcome to stay, but she's visibly terrified of him. He stands there wondering, did I get uglier or something? Then a memory from the past hits him, and he starts to panic. Just then, a system window pops up with the girl's information. Her name is Alice Historia, age 17, the Archbishop's granddaughter. She has some pretty unique skills like love and forgiveness, and on top of that, incredible divine power and magical knowledge. Allan reads this, and it all makes sense. No wonder she's scared. He used to bully her. Frozen by awkwardness, Allan then notices her last name. He realizes she has the same surname as the author of the book he needs, which means the author is the Archbishop himself. Allan's friendly expression instantly vanishes. He thinks to himself that he's totally screwed after the stunt he pulled before. There's no way the Archbishop will let him anywhere near that book. Allan quickly apologizes, saying he might be scaring her. He explains that he lost his memories and doesn't recognize most people here. Looking at the terrified Alice, he thinks, yeah, that's a fair reaction. I wouldn't believe this garbage excuse either if I were her. Allan decides his best bet is to just grab the book and get out. He reaches for the shelf where it should be, then freezes. The book is gone. Alice asks if he's looking for her grandfather's book. Allan turns and slowly nods. She's holding the book tightly in her hands. She says she's finished reading it and offers it to him. Allan, trying to be polite, says he doesn't want to interrupt her, but Alice hands it over, and as Allan sees the title, his eyes go wide. The book is titled On Resurrection. Alice explains they're just her grandfather's research notes, nothing too special. After all, bringing people back from the dead is impossible. Allan looks away, surprised. Why is it impossible? He asks. Alice says that even the strongest sacred power can't recall a soul that is already left. Only necromancy could do that, and it requires a terrible sacrifice. Allan asks, what if someone had both sacred and magical powers? Alice explains that such cases are exceptionally rare. If you used both powers at once, your body would probably just explode. Allan flips through the book, muttering, "Is that really true?" He studies the pages, still unconvinced. "I don't believe it's impossible. I mean, this book is about resurrection, isn't it?" Alice gives him a curious look, asking him to explain. Allan points out that according to the book, more prayer equals better sacred power. He notes sorcerers use mana, while dark sorcerers tap into life force. So he wonders, isn't there another way to boost sacred power? Alice suggests that beyond prayer, one could always use magical tools. She was about to mention resurrection, but Allan abruptly cuts in. He gets all flustered loudly, insisting he's kept her too long with his chatter. "It's getting late," he says, "and she really should be heading home. She's looked uneasy from the start, and there's no hiding it anymore." And then the guy actually starts physically guiding her toward the gate. She obviously has something more to say, but he just keeps nudging her out. He tells her not to worry. He'll handle the lights and lock up the library. Then he shuts the door right in her face, leaving Alice totally bewildered. She's left wondering what on earth suddenly got into that goofball. That talk about resurrection? Was he just bluffing again, but this time his vibe felt different? For once, the guy seemed completely and utterly serious. Before she can dwell on it, an archbishop suddenly appears. He greets her, then warns her to be careful now that the seventh prince has returned. He hands her a bird-like mask, telling her it's time to get to work. With that, she and a group of priests follow him straight to Lewin's chamber. They arrive to find the man screaming in absolute agony. Alice dons her mask as the group begins the healing ritual. As they proceed, Lewin's agonizing screams only grow louder. While performing the healing, Alice is reminded of her grandfather's words. This man's curse is on a whole other level. It's a malediction that even her divine power can't seem to cure. Seeing his condition worsen, she knows he's running out of time. That's why she needs a cure, and just then Allan's strange words resurface in her mind. The scene cuts back to our main character, Allan, sitting in his room. He pores over some documents, asking Harmon if they mention his parents. Harmon questions him, asking if he truly needs that information. After all, he should still remember his own mother and father. Allan leans back, asking if Harmon still believes his amnesia is just an act. He insists the memory loss is real, so Harmon should just spill the details. Harmon sighs, stating that his parents lived a simple, ordinary life. Allan looks up, stunned. "That's it?" he asks. "That's really all you're going to tell me?" But Harmon simply nods. Allan thinks to himself, "Dude, your face is practically screaming that you're lying." This guy's poker face is seriously lacking. Allan mulls it over. He just wanted to understand his family's relationships. But for a royal family, the whole situation feels incredibly suspicious. The important secrets are probably kept under tight lock and key. Just then, Harmon brings up an upcoming banquet, asking if Allan is prepared. Allan immediately shoots down the idea without a second thought. Harmon tries to change his mind, mentioning Charlotte studied etiquette just for him. But nope, our guy is totally unfazed. Harmon then asks what his plan is if Prince Luan actually shows up. Our hero, with his usual bewildered look, simply asks, "Who in the world is that?" Harmon tells him to check the family tree, saying he will definitely find him. He points directly to Luan's portrait. He explains Luan is his older brother, and warns that he's the one to watch out for. We then see Luan, and this guy is clearly not having a good time. Hearing about Allan's banquet has apparently sent him into a complete spiral. Fast forward to the banquet, and it is your classic ritzy party scene. Music is playing, food is served, and all the nobles are schmoozing. The Lord greets Alice with a big smile, remarking on how lovely she has become. She offers a polite smile, but inside she is completely panicking. It turns out her grandfather gave her one strict rule: stay away from this party. She recalls her grandfather being practically beside himself with worry, shouting that this whole event was for the prince. Alice thinks, well, Grandpa's busy with the first prince, so he couldn't be here. So our family needed a representative. Just then, Duke Fulmer arrives. He approaches Alice with the classic, "You are as beautiful as ever" line, and then says she must be the goddess Gaia reincarnated. Immediately, the surrounding nobles begin to whisper. They murmur about the Duke's recent popularity with the ladies, which they find strange given his lower ranking status. Someone notes he avoids power struggles, focusing on volunteer work instead. These nobles are so deep in politics that simple kindness seems suspicious. Alice hears their petty comments and gets annoyed. Fulmer notices and tries to explain. After his wife passed, volunteering became his purpose. He even admits it is not a very noble pursuit. Alice quickly steps in loudly, declaring he deserves respect for it. But then she feels a moment of internal conflict. She thinks about how Fulmer is a good man who faithfully served Lady Yulia. Now loyal to the first prince, he helps others instead of seeking power. He is the perfect nobleman, so why does he give her such a strange feeling? She makes an excuse to greet others, needing to escape the odd vibe he gives off. Meanwhile, we find Lords Janet and Grill, who look incredibly stressed out. Janet is visibly on edge, practically vibrating with tension. grumbling about being summoned from so far. Alice sees them and thinks, finally, some people I can actually relax with. She walks over to say hello. They are surprised, realizing she is the Archbishop's granddaughter. Janet admits he has only ever seen her from a distance. And then Allan arrives looking very serious. He is holding a piece of cloth like it is his own personal security blanket. His gaze meets Duke Fulmer's, and the Duke gives him a pointed look. After his entrance, Allan sits down and looks around in genuine surprise. He is actually thinking, wow, people really came to this. This guy seriously expected no one to show. He is the prince without any claim to the throne. The prince, who was literally kicked out, figured his banquet would be a bust. Just a few servants and maybe a sad cracker plate. But nope, the entire hall is buzzing with people. He spots Charlotte, who looks a bit lost, and asks why she's getting all the stares. Charlotte just keeps her hands politely behind her back and looks away. Allan quips, "You look more aristocratic than I do." He asks if her lessons actually worked. Harmon chimes in saying a commanding presence isn't something you can just learn. And Allan pauses. "Hold on. Are you saying I lack presence?" That's when Duke Fulmer approaches them. He's all smiles, with his arms spread wide as he greets our hero. Allan gives him a blank stare. "Who's this?" And Harmon instantly goes into damage control. Harmon introduces the Duke, but Fulmer just laughs it off. He says it's perfectly fine Allan doesn't remember him since it has been quite a while. He then apologizes for not being there during Allan's recent troubles. Our hero shakes his hand, thinking how the Duke once served his mother but now backs the first prince. He's one of the few people from his mom's circle that Allan actually recalls. The guy seems pretty decent. But then a system window flashes open showing all the Duke's hidden stats. It turns out he's a vampire, and at the moment he is quite thirsty. Allan keeps a firm grip on Fulmer's hand, his mind racing. The Duke starts radiating a dark aura, asking if Allan enjoyed the food. Allan plays it cool, replying, "Yes, it was delicious." Meanwhile, he's panicking inside because he just accidentally released some sacred power. A vampire should be recoiling from that kind of holy energy. But this guy's just standing there, smiling calmly. The Duke then leans in, saying it's been so long since Allan had royal cuisine. And Allan's brain fires up. Wait, how long has this guy been here? Then he sees it. The Duke is standing with his hands clasped behind him, and as Allan scans the hall, he notices the red eyes. System windows start popping up all over the place. Fulmer, still playing the polite noble, asks if Allan is looking for something specific. Our hero stands up from the sofa and says, "Oh, right. I just remembered something that soured my meal." He turns to a waiter, asking for some alcohol as he grabs the entire bottle. Allan instantly transmutes the liquor into holy water, a wicked grin on his face. Turning to Duke Fulmer, he asks, "Hey, buddy, why don't you have a drink too?" And Fulmer, ever the perfect nobleman, agrees without hesitation. Now our hero is thinking, drink it. Go on, drink it, and show me your true vampire face. He's certain Fulmer is the shadowy figure from that murder. The Duke takes the glass and just chugs the whole thing. Then he smiles, puts a hand to his head, and says, "Oh my, I think I'm already drunk." Allan just stares at him. "Bro, you don't look drunk in the slightest." So Allan does the most logical thing. He grabs the bottle and asks, "Is that so?" The crowd stares in shock, wondering what the seventh prince is possibly doing. And before anyone can even think to stop him, Allan shatters the bottle and stabs the jagged glass shard right into Fulmer's hand. Blood and glass fly everywhere. Harmon is screaming, "Your Highness, what are you doing?" His boss just attacked a Duke in front of everyone. Allan stares at the wound, completely shocked. The Duke is actually bleeding. He's shaking, clutching his hand, telling Allan to calm down. But how can he? The wound isn't healing. Don't vampires have insane regeneration? So why is Fulmer bleeding like a regular person? Harmon immediately switches to damage control. He shields Allan, apologizing over and over, saying, "I am so sorry." The seventh prince is obviously drunk. He turns to Fulmer, urging him to get the wound treated right away. Once they're alone, Harmon frantically asks Allan, "Why would you do that?" Charlotte asks if he really sensed something, and Allan replies, "Yeah, he seemed like a vampire." The two of them just stare at him, stunned. Harmon says if that's true, they have to catch him immediately. But our boy says it's no use. They have no proof. Then he just tells Harmon to bring him a pen and paper. Meanwhile, Duke Fulmer sprints down a hall. He darts into a room, slams the door, and gags. It seems the holy water worked, just with a delay. He clutches his bloody mouth, thinking it must be a curse. And that's when his true form begins to emerge. He wonders how our boy could have possibly known what he was. Coughing up blood, he thinks, "I need to remove my burned organs. I need fresh blood and meat now." And just then, a maid named Milia arrives to clean his room. The monster graciously invites her inside. She enters apologizing for the intrusion, but he says, "No need to apologize. Clean wherever you wish." Yep, that maid is definitely about to be dinner. Later, other maids see the Duke's door open and greet him as he exits. Fulmer casually adjusts his jacket. Smiling, "That was a very satisfying meal." He notes how busy they are with the banquet. and the maids gush, "Oh, you're the only one who thinks of us." He then casually mentions the maid Milia. She works so well, he's considering hiring her. He asks them to pass the message to the chamberlain. The maids are thrilled, exclaiming, "Oh, wow, working for you would be a dream. Milia will be so happy." Meanwhile, we all know Milia is almost certainly dead in that room. As Fulmer walks off with a chuckle, saying his estate is nothing special, a maid points out the banquet hall is the other way. He stops saying he's not returning to the banquet. He plans to visit Lanto to offer his evening greetings. Then we cut back to our boy. He's holding a paper announcing he's written it all down. Harmon glances at it, asking, "Are there really this many?" Allan scans the list like it's for groceries and says, "These are just the ones I spotted on the first floor." Charlotte notes that there are many aristocrats here tonight. Harmon admits that while they can't prove who's a vampire, at least none are parents, so it's not the worst-case scenario. Allan looks puzzled. "What are parents?" Harmon begins to explain. Basically, during vampire evolution, when it comes to vampires, they have parents instead of being turned just like that duke they defeated. These parents are the ones who make more vampires, and they're experts at blending in. Allan asks if even sacred powers can't find them, and Harmon says they can't. These monsters can literally steal the bodies of people they've killed. Allan crumples the paper in his fist. He asks Harmon about his rank in society. A bit confused, Harmon confirms he's high enough to command a knightly order. So our hero orders him to round up everyone on this list immediately. He needs to assess the situation and kill them if he has to. Harmon glances at the list, then assures Charlotte he'll take all responsibility. But Allan interrupts, asking why Harmon's only worried about him. He's the one who should be worried. Since they can't prove who's a vampire, they'll just have to kill suspects and see who turns to dust. He adds that the Duke likely knows Allan exposed him, so they're running out of time. Harmon agrees, without a second thought. Before leaving, Charlotte tells Allan to be safe. As his people leave, Allan thinks, "Okay, time for me to lay low." But just then, a red-headed idiot calls out his name. This guy casually walks up to Allan. Turns out it's his older brother. A system window pops up with Lupel's stats, and his character profile is a total mess. He's cunning, a master with a spear, trusting yet also afraid of everything. The window says he's guaranteed to be the next emperor, all thanks to his mom. Allan just reads it, thinking, what's with these contradictory traits? Both trusting and cunning. Make it make sense. Lupel smiles dramatically, hand on his chest, asking if Allan truly lost his memory. Before he can finish his act, Allan cuts him short. He just asks, "You're the third prince, right?" Lupel just smiles with his hands up, and Allan remembers Harvin's warning about this guy. Apparently, this prince is a complete mama's boy, and because of his personality, he has almost no divine presence. Lupel gives a lazy yawn and says it seems Allan hasn't completely forgotten him. Allan doesn't confirm or deny anything. He just claims that Harmon told him about Lupel. The prince grins. "Sure, we'll go with that." He then casually mentions none of their other brothers attended the banquet. He implies Allan should be offended, but they must have important things to do. Allan smirks, knowing he's being provoked. Our hero replies to his brother, "One is more than enough." Lupel smugly puts a hand on his hip, saying he only came because his schedule was free. Then his pleasant smile turns threatening. He leans in close. "If you're here for the throne, we could easily become enemies." Allan just glares at the hand on his shoulder, getting more irritated by the second. Lupel warns him to just keep living his quiet life, and with that, he turns to leave. He gives a dismissive wave over his shoulder and says he's heading out. Allan watches him go, thinking that even without him, Lupel would never become emperor. He dismisses the fool, entirely focusing on his real mission. Our guy starts to leave, deciding to save his energy. Fulmer's true strength is a mystery. The game plan is simple. Lay low until Harmon and Charlotte are done. Just as he's about to dash, his name booms across the hall, freezing him in place. It's Luan demanding Allan show himself now. So he stands there wondering what kind of fool the original prince was to be this hated. He turns to see Luan, the one who was just screaming his lungs out. Suddenly a system window appears with Luan's stats, and wow, his traits are a bit concerning. He's both generous and cruel. Due to some incident, he now has a rotting body, but he's a master swordsman and could be a wise ruler. But he also has what it takes to be a tyrant. And the craziest part, he wants to kill our guy for ruining his mother's reputation. Allan just stares at him, thinking the rotting stench and magic power from this guy are just insane. Somehow Luan is still alive, basically inhabiting a corpse. His willpower alone is respectable. Staying conscious in that state takes some serious mental grit. Before he can process this, Luan suddenly grabs him by the shirt. He glares at our guy, growling, "How dare he insult his subordinate, their mother's own counselor, and there's no way Allan didn't know that. Why does he always insult good people and do everything just to oppose Luan?" The first prince coughs up blood furiously, asking why Allan keeps trashing their mother's honor. And just then, the old man walks in. Seeing this, he demands to know what's going on. Celt glares, asking why no one is answering. Then he sends a blast of light forward, a warning shot demanding what is happening. Allan grinds his teeth, bracing against the powerful wave. He thinks, even the Emperor's voice holds immense divine power. The Emperor glares at the blood-coughing Luan, addressing him by his formal title, Celt. Glances aside with a grave look, ordering the doctors to take Luan for immediate treatment. Then his focus shifts to Allan, demanding an explanation. He heard the seventh prince insulted Duke Fulmer. Is that true? Allan looks away with a serious face, confirming it is. The Emperor demands his reason. Our guy stares ahead, confused, thinking, I can't just say I was hunting a vampire, not trying to insult him. For a moment, he wonders if he should just tell the truth. But no way, Celt would never believe that. Allan picks the safe option, saying he drank too much and was in the wrong. The old man looks down at him, asking if that's all he has to say. Seeing that annoyed look, our guy thinks, what's with that reaction? Why does it feel like he expected a different answer? Just then, Luan, using a table for support, gets up and tells everyone to shut up. He snatches a glass and hurls it right at our guy, with a hand pressed to his wound. He apologizes for being rude, but Allan insulted his knight, which he can't just ignore. So he demands a duel for his honor. The elder asks if he's completely lost his mind, wanting to fight Allan in his current state. He then leaves, promising to punish Allan after this whole mess is settled. Luan faces the Emperor, refusing to stand down. He recalls how the Emperor praised Allan for his actions at the Ronya estate. He adds that he also wanted to see Allan's true colors. This fight will prove if he truly hunts vampires or if he just stole the glory. Luan calmly asks, aren't you curious too? He's basically guilt-tripping the Emperor. Royal politics at its finest, folks. Raphael panics, begging the Emperor to end this, but His Majesty just turns and leaves. Luan, looking half dead, informs our hero that the Emperor has approved their duel. He points at Allan, vowing to teach him some humility. Allan just stands there thinking, hey, nobody even asked me if I wanted to do this. Up on the balcony, the nobles begin to whisper. One murmurs, the seventh prince is at it again. Another suggests they leave before things get ugly. Grill drunkenly yells, our seventh prince is a weirdo, but he's a good guy. Janet quickly covers his mouth, apologizing to Lady Alice, but she isn't paying attention. Her focus is on Allan. She saw him pass a note to Harmon before the duel. She's dying to know what was on it. All she knows for now is that it must be important. Gripping the railing, she pieces it together, then declares, I'm heading down. She's determined to prevent any casualties, which is pretty funny since one brother is half dead and the other slays vampires. Allan stands there with a stick, wondering how he got stuck with this dysfunctional family. He glances at Luan, who looks about ready to collapse. He thinks, are they really going to let him fight like this? But the Emperor is indifferent, and the Archbishop is no help either. The Archbishop explains the rules, no sacred power as Luan's body is too weak for it. Besides, Allan supposedly killed a vampire without even using it. So this is a pure test of his combat abilities. Our hero starts to freak out, thinking, wait, sacred power is literally all I know. I have no idea how to even use a sword. He silently curses his situation, realizing his allies are nowhere in sight. Seeing no other choice, he grips his sword and turns to Luan. Luan smirks and asks if he's ready. The Emperor signals to start reminding them of their brotherhood. And with that, the duel between our hero and the half-dead prince began. Allan charges, then immediately drops to his knees, shouting, I surrender! Everyone just freezes. He even clasps his hands together as if praying. He announces loudly, I surrender to Luan because I am utterly terrified of him. The Emperor just facepalms in complete exasperation. He wonders if Allan did this to avoid fighting or out of concern for Luan. Whatever the reason, he just thinks Allan is a total fool. Allan says, you asked us to respect our bond as brothers. Technically, he's right, but it's also the most pathetic excuse ever. Luan absolutely snaps. He shatters his own weapon, calling Allan worthless trash. He accuses Allan of humiliating his knight and now mocking him in his weakened state. Luan starts screaming insults, leaving Allan genuinely shocked by the outburst. He's thinking, brother, what about your royal dignity? But Luan is far beyond reasoning. He channels his remaining energy into one last strike. Allan panics, thinking, if this hits, I'm history. He glances past Luan, hoping the old man might intervene, but nope, he's just watching the show. Then out of thin air, Allan summons a shovel. The crowd just stares. Someone wonders aloud, is that spatial magic? But another observer disagrees, sensing no trace of mana at all. Allan expertly parries with his shovel, wondering, how is Luan even moving in that condition? He knows if this keeps up, Luan's life will truly be on the line. His eyes dart to the Duke in the crowd, who's watching with a fascinated expression. Catching his eye, the Duke offers a chilling grin. And it all clicks. Allan realizes that man is behind everything. He tightens his grip. If I just kill him, it's over. He whispers an apology and channels divine power into the shovel. With a roar, he blasts his brother back in a blinding flash of light and smoke. Then he declares, I will avenge you. At that, the battered prince collapses, coughing up a spray of blood. But Allan isn't finished. He pulls another item from his inventory, a rifle. He calmly takes aim and fires. Raphael panics, urging the Emperor to intervene. Even if it's not fatal, a shot from that range is too risky. Allan aims at Luan, declaring, this is for Gaia. But as he pulls the trigger, the shot flies straight towards the Duke. The bullet hits its mark, nearly taking his head off. But somehow it wasn't a fatal blow. Internally, Allan curses his luck. He realizes the prayer wasn't long enough. The shot lacked its full power. He'll need one more shot to end this. From the ground, Luan screams that he's lost his mind. The Emperor commands the knights to restrain Allan. The guards swarm in immediately, grabbing a hold of him. He struggles, shouting that it's not over. He just needs one more clear shot. He knows the next one would kill the Duke for sure, all while Luan lies defeated on the ground. As the Emperor approaches, Luan's mind flashes back to a past conversation. He remarks that Allan seems different now and asks if Luan has noticed it as well. Luan nods, recalling something Harmon once told him, that Allan played the fool on purpose, all to get exiled and seek revenge for their mother. Now, after witnessing his true power, Luan finally believes it. So Luan needs to know if Allan has what it takes to become the next holy emperor. He places a fist to his forehead, telling the Emperor that his own time is running out. Luan holds out his blood-stained palm, explaining his desire to break his curse and claim the throne for himself. But he admits he's reached his limit. If he's to get revenge on the nobles who mocked their mother, for her so-called low status, one thing must happen. He needs to ensure Allan becomes the next holy emperor. But he couldn't figure out why our guy wanted the Duke dead. None of it was adding up. If the goal was to mock Luan, he would have been the target. For some reason, Allan was fixated on the Duke. He didn't know why, but it was clear Allan had a motive. Just then, Raphael chimed in, saying that Luan needed help. The Emperor agreed they'd discuss it later, then asked if anyone knew where Harmon was. Alice looked startled, saying he left during the duel and never came back. The old man then demanded to know where the Duke was. Raphael reported the Duke was taken to his chambers for treatment. The old man ordered him to bring the Duke. Raphael asked what he planned to do with an injured man. He said since Allan was responsible for the injury, he would personally heal the Duke. But in a flash, his whole expression changed. He grinned, saying he'd just pump his head full of holy power. We cut back to our hero, who was in a jail cell again. Is anyone even keeping a tally of his prison visits at this point? He fumed, thinking how he'd only managed to wound the creep, not finish him. What if the Duke was already roaming the castle, targeting servants again? That's when he noticed the castle had gone eerily quiet. He worried that Harmon and Charlotte had failed their mission. The Duke's confidence at the banquet meant these vampires still had tricks up their sleeves. Being in this sacred castle felt like being in the enemy's headquarters. That meant they surely had an escape plan for tight spots. As he was mulling that over, another problem hit him. Even if Harmon found them as a knight, he couldn't actually harm nobility. Plus, guys like that always have people protecting them. Just then, the foolish prince from before strolled in. He began rambling about the duel being a shame between brothers. But the jerk looked way too happy saying it, earning a silent curse from our hero. Then it clicked. This fool was also a prince. That meant he had the authority to let him out. So he politely asked if the prince could maybe help him leave. Lupel smugly asked why he should do that. What if the Emperor got angry with him for freeing Allan? Allan smiled. Isn't Luan in critical condition? He just wanted to visit and he'd owe the prince a favor. Seeing that the idiot wasn't biting, he quickly changed tactics. He promised if Lupel let him out, he'd see something truly interesting. A short while later, Lupel hadn't just freed our guy, he'd brought him straight to the armory. Our hero recalled the third prince's smirk as he pointed off to the side. He'd loudly told Allan to visit Luan and not to forget his gift. Snapping out of the memory, our hero wondered what his next move should be. Inside the Imperial Palace, he didn't have any real allies. He figured the vampires had probably already shared intel with each other, and since he was a fugitive walking free instead of a prisoner in a cell, he would need help from someone powerful that everyone trusted. And who better for that than his undead squad? He used his skill and summoned his army. Model. He was ready to send them out, but first he commanded them to cover their faces with armor. And of course, the guys immediately put on a fashion show. Meanwhile, our hero was just hoping to handle things quietly, but the vampires forced his hand, so he decided to visit the first prince. The maids gasped, begging the soldiers to stop wondering what was wrong. The seventh prince has started a rebellion. Allan rushed toward the knights. He ordered the knights not to kill anyone, but to simply clear a path. Someone yelled that our hero was heading to the first prince's chambers. The knights attacked, clearing the way. Allan glanced back, thinking, this is perfect. The knight shouted that he was going for the prince and had to be stopped. Our hero entered Luan's room and began tossing out the masked figures. They pleaded with him to stop saying the prince's treatment was not yet complete. Our hero smiled, ordering his zombie to close the door and keep everyone out. Allan stopped before the door, saying nothing. Luan stared at our hero and asked what he was doing. Our hero met his gaze and said he never wanted to do this. He said that because of Luan, the vampire hunt failed. Luan asked if he meant Duke Fulmer. Allan asked in surprise if he had actually known about it. Luan said he looked suspicious, but the priests had confirmed everything was fine. Allan asked if he was certain they had checked everything properly. Those vampires wear human skin and are hard to spot unless their heads are blown off. He then asked him, don't you think ordinary priests might find it hard to tell them apart? Then our hero told Luan that while they sat there, the castle was filling with vampires. Luan asked why our hero never told him he was a vampire. Allan asked if Luan honestly would have believed him. Luan clutched the blanket, saying if our hero had shown his true self, they would have believed him. Allan looked away, asking what he meant by telling the truth. If Luan wanted the truth, then he wants nothing to do with his family or the vampires. Our hero put on a mask and raised his shovel, saying Luan would pay for his suffering. He then struck him with the shovel. At that moment, Raphael was sprinting down the hallway. He demanded to know what was going on. A knight reported that our hero had amassed an army and taken the first prince's room. The archbishop asked how they let this happen when he was gone for just a minute. Raphael glared at the packed knights and called them all fools. The archbishop hit the knights, asking how they could be worse than an old man. He looked with surprise at the fallen body of an undead. Raphael stared at the zombie, wondering if this was truly a dead man. Did the seventh prince control the dead? Had that useless, idiotic prince turned to dark arts? Looking at the undead, he thought that these creatures were not normal. They were overflowing with divine power. He realized these beings contradicted the very laws of this world. It should be completely impossible to create something like this, even with magic. He orders the knights to seal the corridor and secure the hall. He commands them to let no soldier escape. The archbishop's priority is saving the first prince. Raphael's staff slams into the undead knights, who collapse to the floor. He needs to find their summoner, but then the undead begin turning to dust. Surprised, Raphael looks around, wondering what's going on. He immediately turns and dashes for Luan's room. He bursts in to see our hero whacking the prince with a shovel. Our hero jabs the shovel and saying Luan paid his debt with his life. With the debt now settled, it's time to bring him back. Luan recalls how that villain only ever badmouthed our boy. He claimed Allan mocked his status and insulted their mother. He realizes now he should have known Fulmer's words were deliberate, especially after he rushed to report the banquet incident. He wonders why he never suspected Fulmer before. It was because Fulmer had been with him since childhood. After his mother passed, Fulmer was his only support. Because of that trust, he never saw the Duke was a vampire. He finally sees what a fool he's been and why Allan wanted him gone. As our hero stabs him, his soul is torn from its vessel. Instantly, our hero casts the powerful Gaia's blessing. Using necromancy, he performs the resurrection ritual. And believe it or not, it works. The soul returns to Luan's body. A moment later, the prince is perfectly fine. Unwrapping his bandages, he feels no pain and can breathe easy. Meanwhile, our hero smiles, asking Luan how he feels. Tearing off bandages, Luan says his skin bones and muscles feel new. This can only mean one thing: the curse is finally broken. But the method used is something Luan will never ever forget. A little while later, Luan gets dressed, rushing to find Harmon for our hero to finish the job. Luan really wanted to punch him, but couldn't, since he was just saved. The scene then changes. We find Harmon and Charlotte arguing with a knight at a doorway. Suddenly, a hand rests on Harmon's shoulder. It's Luan. Harmon turns shocked to see Luan standing there, completely healed. The knight bows as Harmon asks if the curse is truly broken. Luan says they'll talk later and demands to see the list. Harmon is completely taken aback. Before he can make an excuse, Luan says our hero already told him everything. Harmon hands over the list, and Luan is shocked by how many names are on it. He mutters that things are about to get complicated. Harmon nods, apologizing for not dealing with these traitors sooner. But Luan tells him not to worry, as this actually makes things easier. He'll eliminate them all at once using his royal authority to summon the Order of the Red Cross. Sooner or later, and just as he finished, elite enforcers appear armed with crimson sickles and ready for a bloodbath. Harmon recognizes them, the infamous Red Order, an elite group of soldiers, trained specifically to hunt down apostles and heretics. They only answer to one authority, the royal family itself, making them the Empire's ultimate weapon. Luan presents a list identifying the targets for this evening's hunt. These people are enemies of the Holy Empire, but also the ones who murdered his mother. His order is simple: spare no one. With that, the scene cuts, and the hunt is officially on. And man, these guys are efficient. No questions asked, just pure action. You see that? They just launched a knight straight through a door. A man stares in total shock before he can even start his "Do you know who I am" speech. They move in, and one clean stroke removes his head. A Red Order soldier calmly catches it. Seeing the unholy flame surrounding it, he confirms it. Yep, that's demonic magic. So the people on this list are definitely vampires. He signals his men to eliminate everyone. And folks, that's exactly what they do. They begin slaughtering everyone in sight. Vampires scream and scatter. Harmon tells Lewin their main target, Fulmer, is missing. He insists they need to find and capture him immediately. Lewin just smiles, saying not to worry. He has something special arranged for Fulmer, and he wasn't kidding. The scene shifts to the Emperor seated on his throne, eyeing a certain someone asking if he's truly a vampire. And oh man, the expression on Fulmer's face is priceless. Fulmer is internally screaming, trying to figure out how things went so wrong. The Emperor offered to treat him after his run-in with our hero, and Fulmer was about to politely refuse like any smart vampire, but then Kelt raised a hand, his expression absolutely chilling. He then asked if he was being too direct. The Emperor then leans in closer, saying if the Duke were a normal man, he could apologize later. But if Fulmer is a vampire, he won't be leaving this room alive. Fulmer asks if the Emperor doubts the priest's judgment. Kelt replies he hopes Fulmer can help him trust someone for a change. The Duke looks at His Majesty, suddenly hearing chaos erupting all around him. The sounds of a hunt are everywhere. People are fleeing the palace. This was all supposed to be over once he'd framed the seventh prince, but nope. Now somehow the vampires are the ones being hunted like prey. Fulmer averts his gaze, thinking he has to escape this place immediately. The problem, he's being held by the Emperor, which complicates any escape plan. And the old man isn't making things easy. He's staring intently, demanding that the Duke look him in the eye. Meanwhile, Fulmer is sizing up the room. No weapons, no holy knights in sight. He knows the Emperor is the hero who once slew the demon Ammon. But right now, he just looks like an old man. Unlike an immortal vampire, Kelt is just a mortal with a limited lifespan. And Fulmer, who's almost a parent-class vampire, thinks to himself, this might be easy. This scene could be featured in Dumb Ways to Die. The Duke just starts cracking up. The Emperor gives him a look as if asking, and what's so funny? Did I say something amusing? Fulmer just bends over, completely losing it with laughter. He then boldly calls him an old man, finally admitting he's a vampire. And then the absolute madman bites down hard on his own hand, claiming that as a vampire, he doesn't need to respect some old geezer. As his hand heals instantly, he starts laughing like a total maniac, declaring he's the predator who's come for his meal today. He thrusts his newly healed hand at the Emperor, managing to catch him. But a second later, the old man calmly steps out, a terrifying aura gleaming in his eyes. The vampire just stares, thinking, what in the world is the deal with this guy? In a flash, Kelt rips the hand off and charges straight for him. With a single punch, he sends Fulmer crashing right into the wall. Walking over to him, he poses a simple question to Fulmer. He's not even a parent-level vampire, so what gave him all this confidence? He reminds him that he killed Ian, asking if he honestly thought a single vampire would be a problem. He asks him if he'd forgotten exactly who he was, and then without another word, he rips his head clean off. The Emperor looks at the head in his hand, remarking, yes, you do seem stronger than the others. Staring into its eyes, he orders him not to die just yet, because he still needs to find out the truth of Alucia's death. He then casually adds that from now on, he'll face a fate worse than death itself. We then cut to the clueless redhead and his mom. She's demanding to know if he helped our hero escape. The third prince, looking miserable, says that wasn't his intention. The next thing he knows, a vase smashes against his head. Dina slams her hands on the table, yelling that she told him to do nothing. She grabs his collar and screams that he went and ruined everything. Then she just stops, looks over, and loudly apologizes, asking if he is hurt. She hugs him, tears in her eyes, saying how much she truly loves him. She says she is only trying to make Lupel the next emperor, because only then will the third prince ever matter to anyone. The third prince opens his eyes, stating he's not the lowborn one from Alucia's bloodline. Dina turns to her precious firstborn, asking if he understands his dear mother. Lupel agrees, promising he will become the next emperor. Yep, this family is unbelievably toxic. Now let's fast forward 3 weeks to the Holy Empire's legal bureau. Everything is over. Half the people on the vampire list were killed the day the hunt started. All the remaining vampires were executed in the main square. Some vampires were quietly taken to be used as new experimental materials. The incident that took place in the capital of the Holy Empire became massive news. Talk of what happened spread all across the entire continent. But more importantly, word of someone who can see vampires sent shockwaves through the country. And can you guess who's now in the spotlight? Our hero is now famous for all the wrong reasons. Raphael raises his hand, demanding silence. He announces a meeting regarding Allan will now commence. Our boy stares ahead with a baffled look, thinking, how did my life get this weird? Allan simply raises a hand, asking for a little mercy. Still trying to figure out what this whole interrogation is for. The Archbishop lists the charges leading soldiers and damaging part of the Imperial Palace, which violates the laws of the Holy Empire. Allan offers a slight smile, thinking he should just lock the guy in a cage with the vampires. The old man tells Raphael he didn't understand a single word the Archbishop just uttered. He demands to know which specific laws our hero actually broke. Raphael looks away, saying Allan led knights without approval, convicting him of rebellion. Luan smoothly cuts in, explaining that during an emergency, anyone of royal blood has the full right to command their knights. He smiles, saying there was nothing wrong with what our boy did. Plus, Luan was directly involved, and the Holy Emperor is perfectly fine. So what's the issue? Allan just watches tiredly, thinking, are they defending me? He gets the oddest feeling that they are actually trying to help him. Luan raises a hand, closing his eyes, and says if this is a problem, he'll gladly call the Inquisitors again to determine Allan's true intentions. The old man quickly chimes in. He says they'll discover if this was a rebellion or just Raphael's personal grudge. Celt looks right at the Archbishop and asks if he's correct. Raphael angrily shoves his staff forward, yelling for them to be quiet. He claims it was all for show, and he planned to reward Allan for taking care of the vampires all along. Both Luan and the old man quickly cover their mouths, shaking as they hold back their laughter. Raphael yells in pure anger, "How dare you mock the Archbishop!" Allan smiles to himself, thinking there really is an award ceremony after this. Just as things were about to move on, he stopped. An assistant turns, asking if something is truly wrong. Raphael gazes at our hero, saying he has one last question for the seventh prince. Allan looks over, completely surprised. The Archbishop then looks at our boy and asks him point blank about using necromancy. Our hero looks away, thinking he knew this was coming, but mentally he's fuming. How in the world would the Archbishop know about the walking dead? Allan is certain both the Emperor and Luan are aware of this, but they are staying silent to prevent it from going public. So our boy looks him in the eye and says it's not possible. Raphael gestures to the side, claiming there is information. Our boy asks, surprised, from who did any priests see it themselves? The Archbishop just tells him to stop lying. He looks aside, noting there were healers and holy knights. He'd tied up the dead on purpose so they would not escape. But later the bodies were gone, and the undead were seen taking our boy's orders. The Archbishop then faces our hero, asking if he will keep lying with so much proof. Allan raises his hand calmly, saying there were a lot of vampires in the castle model. Tricking the healers and holy knights would have been easy enough. Gripping his staff, the Archbishop declares that trick only works on regular knights. But fooling an Archbishop like him, that's a different story. Allan thinks sure, except they're dealing with holy undead here. A priest who has never seen one in person just wouldn't get it. So our boy realizes he can still bluff his way out of this. If only he could just be friends with Raphael instead. So he raises a hand, asking if the Archbishop truly wants the whole truth. The Archbishop extends his hand, asking if he is finally ready to confess. Allan looks down and then right back up and says, nope. Later, after leaving the castle, our main character finds the wonderful Charlotte waiting. She hands him a robe, asking how he feels after being bedridden for 3 weeks. She figures a busy day like today must be pretty tough on him. He just smiles, adjusts his coat, and says, he is fine, just a little sleepy. He remembers that using Ian's skull put him out of commission for those 3 weeks. He never knew the price for revival would be so steep. At that moment, Harmon walks up to them. Allan's face brightens since he has a big favor to ask. He explains his trusty shovel broke in the last fight and he needs a new one. Harmon seems surprised, asking if he's seriously going to keep using shovels. Allan insists his hands are just too used to shovels from all that digging. The deputy can't believe that's the actual reason. He suggests, why not just forge a proper new weapon? Allan looks confused. A new weapon, you say? So Harmon explains that in the northwest there is a mine full of rare metals. It's in Hilda's territory, the land of the first princess. The whole area is known as the greatest weapons empire. They even contracted dwarves to make all kinds of amazing things. If Allan goes there, he can get both normal and even magical weapons. Allan's eyes light up, asking, does that mean I can get a musket? Our boy grins at Charlotte, reminding everyone to like the video for more great content. And don't forget to ring that notification bell. Seriously, go on and give that little bell a click.